You want to hear a
Really?
funny story about Tony Ducks? Like when they started making The Godfather, they rolled into the neighborhood. They used to deal with all the black dealers on the west side of Harlem, like Nicky Bonds, Frank Lucas, all of them.
Johnny Echoes was actually the last person that your father ever saw. You met the Vinny Basciano, I believe, didn't you?
My father was with Joe Messino. I had met Joe Messino.
What did you have to do because you lost the sit down? Let's talk about some organised crime people that you or your family have met over the years. Pasquale Malizia, otherwise known to me and others as Paddy. Good to have you on the show, Paddy. How you doing?
All right, Rob. Thank you very much for having me, buddy.
Pleasure, mate. Thank you for coming on. Right, let's jump straight in to... Oh, actually, I want to say 1966 you were born, and that's the year, the one and only time England has won the World Football / Soccer Cup. So the Euros that's the only time England's won any major footballing competition, and the Euros is just started. So it could be that you're the lucky charm, and England now win the Euros. So I'll owe you if they do. All right.
That's good for them. But my Italians are still there, bro.
Yeah. Oh yes, they're still there. Well, I haven't even. I think they're playing as we speak, or they played a little earlier. I'm not sure. I haven't been taking much notice of them, but yeah, they'll have a good chance of winning as well. Right, you were born and raised in Harlem. Can you give us
East Harlem?
East Harlem. Okay, so you're born and raised in East Harlem. Could you give us the history of East Harlem? Because it's got quite a rich history, hasn't it?
It sure does. Well, East Harlem okay, let's put it this way. East Harlem was always an area where all immigrants, basically Italians, would come from Ellis Island. You know what I'm saying? At the turn of the century and into the early 1900s, it was the biggest Italian community in the country. Over 100,000 residents just flowing in. And they thought that Little Italy was nothing until that day. That's how many people came in, and it was like cluttered. It's not big of an area. It runs from basically, they say 96, but I would say 100th Street to 125th. And then from 5th Avenue West to East to the East River Drive. And that's East Harlem. It's a small area, but it's very rich in history. A lot of people came up there. I don't know what attracted them, but they came up that way. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, because people from the old country, there was mass poverty in Italy in the mid to late 1800s, wasn't there? So people jumped ship, came to predominantly New York, I think in other areas, Ellis Island, and then they settled in New York. Majority of them settled in East Harlem. So I guess among those people must have been your grandparents on both sides?
Yeah, both sides. My father's parents and my mother's parents had come in. They came in around like the turn of the century, like early 1900s. I remember my aunt, she had a plaque from Ellis Island, my mother's sister, and it was a list that had shown that every time they would come through Ellis Island, it was a list of all the people that they had brought through. And I remember looking down the list, and my grandmother, her maiden name was Louise Fanone. That was my mother's mother, my grandmother. And my grandfather was a Zazima, Vincent Zazima. So they put it on the list, and it was there. And when my aunt died, I think my cousin has it, but it was a fascinating piece of history, It took them, I don't know where they got it, but they had gotten it years ago.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. A bit interesting doing your family tree to kind of retrace your roots from even further back than New York City into Italy. That'd
Yeah.
be a fascinating thing to do. So there was obviously a lot of crime in that area, particularly through the Prohibition era, and your grandparents grew up through, well, I suppose they were adults by then. Were they ever involved in any mafioso, any crime, any organized crime, or were they totally clean people?
No, they were totally hardworking people. My father's father was a scaffold builder back in the day when they built them by wood. You know, I mean, he used to climb. It was nuts. My grandmother, mainly all the old Italian women that came, she was a seamstress. She cleaned houses. She did what he did, you know. And then on the other side, my grandmother, Giselle, that's my father's mother, they did the same thing. And my grandpa, Giovanni, which was Grandpa Malizia, he worked too. You know, they worked their odd jobs because they had a lot of kids. You know, my mother comes from a family of seven, and my father comes from a family of seven. So they all had to work. You know, they weren't nothing like that. They were hardworking people. You know, who were just making it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. And then they obviously had your father and your mother. So what was the kind of backstory before you were born on your mother and father and your kind of wider family?
How they met?
Yeah, how they met in because you were born '66.
Yeah.
So yeah, just how they met and what they were like, characters, behavior.
Oh no, my mother, my father, they used to have in East Harlem. There's still to this day. There's a big high school on 106, between 116 and 114 on Pleasant Avenue. Originally, it was Benjamin Franklin High School. Now it's Manhattan Center, they call it, Science and Mathematics. So they used to have these big dances back in the day. You know, everybody would go dancing. You know, they come from over there. And, you know, one day, my mother and father go there. And my mother, back then, she didn't know how to dance. So she was sitting on the side, on the bench. And my father was the dance. He used to dance all over the place. So he sees this beautiful woman sitting there. And he's like, well, what is she doing, you know? So he walked up to her and he says, come on, you want to dance? And she says, I don't know how to dance. She goes, follow my lead. You know, if you have to, put your feet on top of my feet. And they started dancing, you know. And basically that was it, you know. And they had all their crew and friends. They were all over the place, you know, because they hung out, my mother, all her girlfriends, and they wind up, my mother and father met, they wind up going out with each other. Like my mother's girlfriends and my father's friends, you know, basically that's how it was, you know. And back then, that's how it was. You know, like the big band era, Glenn Miller, you know, and stuff like that. And that's the way it was, you know.
Was your father into crime at an early age? Did he go to school, or did he jump school and criminal?
He basically, he went to school, but I don't know exactly what grade, but probably like middle school, maybe eighth grade, you know. They used to go, they used to cut out, they used to hang out on the streets, you know, and they used to, their idols were all the wise guys, you know. So basically, then, even though there was no money, you know, pretty much all the kids were quitting school and going to work. So when they went to work, you know, my grandmother and grandfather said, listen, you guys have got to quit. We need money. You have to go to work. So that's what they did. But they didn't go to work. You know, they were hanging out on the street and they were climbing. They were climbing through people's windows. You know, that's what they call a flat thief. You know, you look around, you know, and you go through, you climb through, you grab wherever you can. You know, my mother, her side, they were straight. I mean, her generation, until they came to my cousin, my two cousins on my mother's side. The crime was on my father's side. Started with my father and my two uncles. And then my other three uncles. They held legitimate jobs. My uncle Vincent worked for Con Edison, which is the power company for New York City and the five boroughs. And my uncle Al and my uncle Joe, they owned a barber shop on Wall Street. And they used to cut David Rockefeller's hair. A big
That's
smile.
cool.
Yeah, and but on the side, they were bookmaking, taking numbers, loaning money out. So basically, they worked, but it was in them, a little hustle on the side. You know what I'm saying?
I know what you're saying. Your father has got a really interesting story about World War Two. Can
Yeah,
you can you tell us that?
sure. In 1941, Pearl Harbor, we got bombed by the Japanese, and my father was 17 years old. So back then, it was like everybody, you're patriotic, you're going to war, let's go, you know. So he goes in, it was in January of 42. He goes into basic training in Atlantic City, New Jersey. So he used to run do all the calisthenics and the workouts and everything. And he used to do that. So all of a sudden, one day, he
How
gets
did
a
it?
phone.
So sorry to interrupt, Paddy. How did he get in to the army? Because he was too young to join, wasn't he?
No, he was in the Air Corps. He,
Sorry, the Air Corps. Forgive me,
he,
Air Corps
yeah,
people
no
out
problem, no problem.
there.
My uncle Al, which was the one that owned the one part of the barber shop, he was a twin. He had a twin, and when they were born, my other uncle, who was Pasquale, was dead, was stillborn. So my father, back then, they had no ID, so he took his dead brother's birth certificate, and he went in, and they took it, and he signed up, and he went to Atlantic City, you know? And then that's what happened, where my grandfather dies. So now he goes up to his superiors and says, my father passed away. I need permission to go home to the funeral. They turn around and tell him no. So now, he's astounded, how the fuck could you do something like that, So my father, knowing him, tell him, I'll fix your fucking ass. When in the middle of the night, he gets up, he puts his officer's uniform on, and he goes and he hitchhikes back to East Harlem from Atlantic City, which is like 2.5 hour car drive. And he goes to his father's funeral. And basically now he's done and everything. And he's like, should I go back? And my father was one, you got to catch me, I'm not turning myself in. You don't fucking catch me. Which they did. And I believe it was 44. He was out for about a year. So they get him, they arrested him. So they give him 5 years for going AWOL from the Air Corps. And he's in Leavenworth. But he's a kid now. He's 20 years old. And he's in Leavenworth in Kansas. So he does his time. They gave him 5 years. Back then, you only did a third of your time. So he did about 18 months. And he comes out. And that's where they start their thing. You know what I'm saying?
Leavenworth was, they housed Japanese conscientious objectors to the war at the time.
Correct.
Was he in amongst them or a different wing, or don't you know?
I really don't know.
Not sure. No, that's cool.
Leavenworth's a big place, man.
Oh, yeah, maybe they were kept away. Leavenworth Penitentiary is like 5,000 kilometers from East Harlem, so I guess he didn't get many visitors in the 18 months he was there.
No. They couldn't even afford to eat. They hadn't even afford to go. You know what I mean? To go visit him.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a kid. He was 20 years old.
So how old was he when you were born?
I'm trying to think. 42.
Oh, so he'd had like a good chunk of his life by the time you came along.
Yeah, well, me and my brother and I were 11 and a half years apart.
Right.
You know, because when my father came home and then my parents got married in 53. So the next year in 54 of October, my brother was born.
Right.
And then, they were doing their thing. And then comes 1957, which he gets into a jam. Him and my
So what was
older
he
uncle.
doing? You say he was doing his thing. What thing were him and your father and his brothers, some of his brothers, and a couple of his brothers, they were called what were they called? The begins with P.
The Pontiac Brothers.
The Pontiac Brothers, and they were kind of quite hardcore criminals, weren't they, back in East Harlem, back in the day?
Yeah, they were, just like everybody else. They were more, like thieves as young, kids. But my father was very intelligent, and very
Yeah.
low key guy. But when they were kids, they used to sit around the neighborhood, you sit on the street, and you got the vendors going by and everything. They would rob all the vendors, and cause havoc. But then they would see all the wise guys out there, and, they see big cars, women, money, and they start to get to know them.
So would you
Being a
say they were
new
tough
boy.
guys?
Yeah, they
Your
were
father,
tough guys.
they're tough guys. So did he get into drugs later on, like after you were born, or was it before you were born? He was involved in that.
He started in the late 40s after he came out from Leavenworth.
Right. Okay.
I'll tell you something. There was the three brothers that went into the life and three that didn't. So my three uncles, between my Uncle John, which his nickname is to call him Cockeye Benny because he had a cast in his eye. My father and my youngest was my Uncle Ernie, who was a raving maniac. So between my oldest uncle and my father, there was 12-year difference. And between my father and my youngest uncle, there was 9-year difference. So between three brothers, there was 21-year difference. You know
Yeah.
what I'm saying? So basically, they knew all these guys, and there was a guy in the neighborhood who was friends. He was my older uncle's age, and his name was Danny Lesser. His nickname was Muzzy. Tell me, I don't know what it means, but they got to like him, and he was a big shot back then. He was the man with the pipeline, if you know what I'm saying.
What was his name?
So his name was Daniel Lessa, Lessa.
Right. So he ruled Harlem. Was he a drug kingpin?
He was a massive heroin supplier.
And he had a really bizarre death, didn't he?
Sure did. Danny Lesser, it was in the late 60s. He could not swim, hated water. So one day he was in, I don't know if it was a rain or whatever, he was in 2 feet of water. And he panics and he falls down. And he drowns in 2 feet of water. That was unreal. Poor guy dies in 2 feet of water. So that's basically the only thing I knew about him.
Yeah. Who else did your father knock about with or know back in, kind of pre when you were born?
Who did he what?
Who did he? What sort of before you were born? What sort of people was he involved in with, like organised
Oh,
crime guys?
Fat Tony was his man. Tony
Fat Tony
Salerno.
Salerno.
Yeah, because that was Tony's neighborhood. That was the Hunt 16th Street crew. That was the oldest crew ever, and one of the most powerful crews. Like a lot of people say, like I'm hearing the other day, right? Oh, Howard Beach, Bensonhurst, the mob originated there. Well, cut it off. The mob originated the Black Hand,
Yeah.
originated in East Harlem on 106th Street with Clutch Amarillo, Ciro Terranova, the Artichoke King, all these guys, that crew there, which the turn of the century, late 1800s, early 1900s, which became the Genovese crew, the 116th Street crew, which is the oldest crew and most powerful crew ever. You know, a lot of people, they don't know that. You look up history and you see how many of these guys who were born and raised in East Harlem, they were all bosses and big shots. And, that's why it gets me and all these people, oh, Brooklyn, this and that. No, but after later on it was flooded, But that's where East Harlem is where the mob originated.
Tony Ducks, he was he born there or lived there?
Tony Ducks was born in East Harlem, but he lived out in he lived in Long Island on the North Shore in Oyster Bay, very rich neighborhood. You want to hear a funny story about Tony Ducks?
Please, yeah.
My cousin, my Uncle Benny's daughter, Marie, okay? I don't know if you ever heard, you probably didn't hear of it. Back in the day, there was this company, which is still around, called Roma Food Enterprises. And,
I have heard of those, yeah.
Okay, my first cousin married the owner of that back in like 65, 66. And he had a little Italian deli in Keensburg Beach, New Jersey. And he wound up opening up this Roma Foods, which became enormous, you know what I mean? It was in Piscataway, New Jersey. Then they had a hub in Dallas, Fort Worth. And then they opened one in San Diego, So she winds up marrying him, my cousin. But basically, like now, he had, Louis died right around Christmas 2020. And my cousin became the president, my cousin Stephen. So there was a company that came in and merged with them. So they gave them a price to buy them out, so they sold all the stock out from it. Which, forget it, probably millions of dollars. You know what I'm saying? So that's pretty much, in that day over there, Carlo Gambino had him, my cousin Louis. They were bringing in the tomato cans that they ship over, the fresh tomatoes. They were shipping Babania in the fresh tomato cans. He couldn't say nothing. What is he going to say? I don't know. They would have killed him. But that's how much, we got around. We know a lot of people. You know what I'm saying? So basically, they had their hands in a little bit of everything,
So where was Fat Tony's hands? What is it he was involved with?
Fat Tony was
Salerno.
a big number. The numbers. The illegal items.
Sorry, I meant Tony Ducks. You were talking about him. What was he involved in?
Tony Ducks. Okay. Now, when my cousin, she gets divorced from Louis Piancone, okay? So now she's in the midst of a divorce. It was like 1988. So he's going back and forth. They lived in New Jersey, right? So now at that time, he was worth about $500 million. So in Jersey, the 50-50 state, you get divorced, you got to give 50% to your spouse. But he knew so many judges and politicians, he was buying them off. So finally, she gets the settlement. She settles on $5 million and two condos worth about $2.5 million, right? So now she meets this guy Peter, right? He was a doctor. So basically, he was a nice guy. I liked to talk and everything. So one day we're talking and everything, right? And he was separated from his wife. So what we get to find out, whose daughter he was married to was Tony Ducks. Wow.
No way.
Yeah. I mean, I remember that. So he would be scared shit because he was, with my cousin, and he thought that back then that Tony Ducks was going to send somebody out and kill him. That's how petrified he was.
I bet.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet him?
Tony Ducks? No, never knew him. No, never knew him.
Did your cousin have any stories about him apart from he was scared of him?
No, that was that family. Tony Ducks had gone away. They went away in the commission trial. That was
Right.
'87. They were convicted in '86, and they went away in '87. But no, they never had no dealings with him. I don't know if my father knew him, but he was from East Harlem too. They were all from me. Lucky Luciano was from East Harlem. Carmine
Yeah.
Galante was from East Harlem. They all were, you know?
There was a scene in the Godfather, wasn't there, when I can't remember his name, beats up,
Jim
beats up a guy, and that's set in East Harlem.
Yeah, that was right around the block from where I lived on 118th Street, between the Drive and Pleasant Avenue. I
Really?
remember, yeah, because back in the early '70s, we were already gone. You know, like when they started making The Godfather, they rolled into the neighborhood, they set up shop, and radios back then was nothing, you know. So they used to go down there, they used to eat, and they put out flyers. And they put out there extras wanted for the scene, like when he's beating them up when they're under the fire hydrant, all the kids.
Yeah.
Now that was friends with me and my brothers when they were kids. And I remember my friend Stephen Oliveri, he put on Facebook, he still had the check that they gave him, that they paid him with. He had a copy of it, you know? And he put it on Facebook. And that was like '71. You know, they did a lot of film in that area because it had a lot of historical area. Because that was known for what it was known. That's why they did it there.
Cool.
Anywhere else, it wasn't right. You know, just East Harlem was a fit for it. You know what I'm saying?
So you were born 1966.
Correct.
So the height of drugs was in the '70s. So you would have grown up around that time. And
Yeah.
just to paint a picture for people that didn't know, it got so bad that and you probably remember this, that the churches merged together because so many of the kids that were going to church were actually dying of drugs. It's tragic.
Oh, yeah.
And they went to the police and they said, you know, you need to do something about this. And off the record, the policeman said, look, a lot of our cops are in the pockets of the mob. A lot, not just the mob, but big drug dealers. And essentially said, we can't really do nothing. And it was just, there was people like selling drugs from ground floor flats, opening those windows and like dealing drugs. It was so like rife, wasn't it? And when they wanted to test product and they wanted to get people hooked, people would go into sort of the middle of the street, drug dealers, and just throw up like bags of new drugs or the next kind of trendy drug for free, and then people just scarper for them and take it. It was a real drug infested.
Yeah, it was.
Crazy place.
Harlem was the epicenter of the drug epidemic. You know, it was very bad. There was, and like late '60s, early '70s, there was 50,000 addicts in New York. 40,000 of them were in Harlem. East Harlem, Central Harlem, West Harlem. They'd be laying all over the floor. They'd be walking around, you know, hands like mitts, you know. It was horrible.
So your father played a role in this, I take it. He was in the drug game in the '70s.
Yeah, well, basically, my father, he, from 60, when he got out in '57, he did his second bid in '57. And he got out in '62.
What was that for? What was his second bid for?
Second bid was conspiracy and violation of federal narcotic laws.
Right, so drugs.
But that's what it was called back then. You know, because they were watching him and everything. And they knew he had something on him, but he had it in the car. So they were chasing him. So as he's running through the streets, he throws the keys into a sewer. You know? So now...
Wow.
They couldn't get there, but they arrest him. So they give him 10 years. That's a second offense, really a first offense. The first offense was for, desertion of the armed forces. So he comes home at 62. And my brother didn't even recognize him. Because when he went away, my brother was like 3 years old. And when he came home, my brother was about 7 years old. And he didn't even know him. He was shying away from him. And then he went to work. He says, let me go to work. Him and my uncle. And they were like, they working like for peanuts. It was like nothing. Back in those days, you brought home $50 a week, maybe $60 a week. And then, they were looking around. They were trying to do the right thing, but it kept calling them. All their friends are saying, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're making peanuts. You're busting your ass. And then my father said, fuck it. Let me get back in. He got back in. And that's where he got off. He became a millionaire in 64.
Wow. Just before you were born, fortunately.
Oh, yeah. Well, basically, that's what happened. He was turned on to this elderly Jewish man who was a big heroin importer. So he was turned on to him. He went and seen him. They were talking. This guy had like a concrete deck in his backyard, the pool and everything. And he just sit outside and he would talk. So my father commits to him, gives him 50 kilos on consignment back then. And back then, they were only paying $12,500 per 1 kilogram, which on the street was going for about $125,000. And that's before you cut it. It was pure. It was 100% pure. But what they didn't know with this old man, where he was hiding his product is where he was holding court. Underneath, he had a bunker. Underneath the patio. He had a secret downstairs with stacks, hundreds and hundreds of kilos. And nobody knew that. They finally found out later, And that was it, because they used to deal with all the black dealers on the west side of Harlem, like Nicky Bonds, Frank Lucas, all of them. That's where they used to get their stuff from. They used to come to Pleasant Avenue. What's his name? Nicky Bonds.
Yeah.
Matty Madonna. You heard of Matty Madonna, right?
Yeah, Nicky Barnes, Lucas, right. Madonna, yeah.
Matty Madonna had Nicky Bonds, which was insane.
Can you move forward a little bit, Vic? Can you just move forward just a tiny bit, just so I can... That's it, that's better, yeah. Cool, if that's all right. Cheers. Sorry, you're saying?
Better? Oh,
yeah, that's good, that's good.
My father, they had one deal with Frank Lucas, and I found this in a paper article. My father basically, he didn't do it. He used to send out my uncles and a bunch of his friends. My father just took care of the financial, tied up all the loose ends, very quiet. So what I see in the newspaper article, that my uncle, they brought Frank Lucas 22 pounds of heroin in 75 to his house in Jersey. And then not too long after that is when they're in the movie when they made the house, all the cops, and they throw bags of money out. They find money like $500,000 thrown out the window on top of the roof and everything.
Yeah.
And I read that. But it took me years to find out things that were happening. And till this day, I still don't know what all that. I probably never won't,
No.
Because if you try to look up my father, you'll find certain things about him. But not like, big. If you look up my uncle with the jail escape and all this shit, very high profile. And my father was like, forget it. I don't need this shit. Stay very low. He used to drive around for a guy with his statue. He had a 1972, he used to drive around in a 1972 yellow Volkswagen Beetle. You know what I'm saying?
They're pretty cool cars, mind, but admittedly
Yeah,
not very expensive.
that became
So
my car.
it became your car. Did he hand it down to you?
Yeah,
Nice.
as a kid, when I was 16, they gave it to me.
So what did your mother think of all this?
What was she gonna do about it?
What
You know?
is she? Was she like kind of get? I get the impression a lot of women of criminals, successful criminals, kind of don't like what they do, but they're happy to receive the trappings of what they do. If you know what I mean. Was that the same? Would you
Yeah,
say your mum was the same as that?
yeah, exactly. She didn't approve of it, But then again, when she married him, my uncle Tony, her oldest brother, pulled her on the side and told her. She goes, "You know what he does for a living, right?" She goes, "Yeah." Well, I could straighten him out. Like any woman's going to say that, basically.
Yeah.
So,
Cool.
what was she going to do? I remember one time, I don't remember, I was told at one time, my father and his friend, they were going around the neighborhood and all the tenement buildings, and they were building traps. You know what traps are?
No, I don't think so.
Where you hide stuff. Like
Oh,
say,
traps. Right.
trap where you hide, like
Trap.
money,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. I thought you said tracks. Sorry. Yeah. Traps. Yeah.
Traps, and they were building them in the stairways, wherever they could build them. And my mother come out, he was building it in the building where we lived, and my mother came out and seen it, and she says, "You get that fucking shit out of here." She goes, "You get my kids involved." She goes, "I'll rat you out myself, motherfucker." You know. She didn't like it, but hey, I mean, I remember one time I told my mother, we had an argument. And she goes, "Your father, look what he did." All this, and I said, I should have never said this to her. I go, "Yeah, but you spent the money." That's all I had to say. She went ballistic. And I heard her like that. She was, "What do you want me to do? What am I supposed to do?" You know?
Truth, though, wasn't it? She obviously didn't
Yeah,
like the truth.
sure, she didn't like it, but don't get my kids involved. You know? That's what they all said. My mother was a hardworking woman. She was a bookkeeper. She learned how to be a bookkeeper when she was in the right before, right before they got married. And then she had to work when he went away. My brother was a kid. My grandmother would watch my brother, and she would go to work. So basically, like any person, basically. I mean, they all don't have devious minds, you know what I'm saying?
Where else did he had some ingenious places to stash his drugs, didn't he? In the
Oh,
house.
they
What was
all
another place?
they had traps everywhere, like I'm trying to remember because I was a kid. We
In
had
the
a big
cellar?
house. Well, they had a big house when we moved out of Harlem. I was 6 months old because they tried to kidnap my father. They were going around. There was a bunch of guys that were going around. Remember with Carlo Gambino when when they kidnapped his nephew,
Yeah,
and then Gotti and Angelo, they killed the guy.
I do
All right,
remember. Yeah,
they were doing the same thing in the neighborhood, and they grabbed one of my
ransom, weren't
friends. Excuse me?
they were picking people that they first of all they would target mob guys, and then when they realised that the drug dealers often had more money than the mob guys, although admittedly a lot of mob guys were involved in it, then they start targeting drug dealers. And targeting meaning that they pick them up from the street, take them somewhere, hold them hostage until they got a ransom for it. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Because they know they're not going to run to the cops. So they grabbed, the first one they grabbed was a guy named Whitey Marsh from Pleasant Avenue. They grab him, they take him to the house, where they're holding people. They gag him, they put a blindfold on him and everything. And they got a guy watching him while they're doing their stuff. So what happens, he winds up somewhere with the blank around his eyes. He makes the guys, he sees who they are. So they killed him. And they cut his head off and left him on the floor. And then they grabbed another one of my father's friends. He was from the, you ever see the Pleasant Avenue Connection book?
Right.
Okay. His name was Jerry Zanfardino. His nickname was Geraz. So they kidnapped him the first time. They got a ransom for him. And now they go get him again, right? So they got him in the car, and they're taking him to the place where they're going to hold him. They stop at a red light. All of a sudden, a New York City marked police car pulls up at the light. He jumps out of the car, and he starts talking to the police. So what are they going to do? They got to run away. He got away that time, you know? And then they came after my father, which
So
we
what was
had
the story
a,
there?
with
How
what?
did they try with the story with your father? How did they try to nab him?
Well, basically, my father had opened up a bar in 1964. It's a bar restaurant on 73rd Street, 3rd Avenue in New York City. And he called it Grandma's after his mother, my grandmother. So one night, it was a hangout there. We're doing good. And one night he's closing up, 4 o'clock in the morning, he comes out. So he's got the car out front. He's warming the car up. And he had just back then, they had come out with the electric locks. You had to put them in separate. And he put the electric locks in. So he's sitting there, he's warming the car up, and he hears a knock at the window. And he turns around and he sees a badge there. And they go, all right, Pontiac, we got you. We want to question you. You got to come with us. So my father's saying, he's knowing what's going on here. He goes, all right, listen, I'll follow you. You go and I'll follow behind you. So the guy's making, like he's being a pain in the ass. Oh, no, you got to come. My father goes, no, I'll find you. So all of a sudden, the guy goes to grab the door. My father hits the locks, throws the car in reverse. The guy pulls out a gun. It's at the fucking window. My father says, he goes, oh my God, I'm going to fucking either live or die. Takes off, backs up, goes on the sidewalk, and takes the fuck off. And he comes back up to the neighborhood in the middle of the night, 4:30 in the morning. And he comes in, my brother told me this because he was older. And he says, pack this stuff, way the fuck out of here. And we went that night, we went to Keensburg Beach, New Jersey. My uncle had moved out there when my cousin Marie met Louis Pino Come. So we're staying out there, and basically, we built the house out there, a little small house. They found a shack. They paid like $11,000 for. And my father wound up putting in $268,000 into it. Pools, fucking all kinds of big gyms, wine cellars. This house was enormous.
Didn't he stash his drugs in champagne bottles and things like that?
I was getting to that.
Sorry.
When I was a kid, they had a wine cellar, and that was like one of the last thing he built. And I always used to see kid walking around, and I see all these cases of French Taittinger champagne, and it seemed like it was sitting there like nobody was drinking it. So later on in life, I said to my brother, I said, "Oh, mommy and dad, they must love this Taittinger stuff." So he turns around and says to me, he goes, "There wasn't champagne in them bottles. It was heroin. That's how they were sneaking it over, in the bottles of the Taittingers." And he was stashing them downstairs. I mean, they came up with ingenious ways of smuggling. You had to, So basically,
So if we talk about you and your upbringing for a bit, and then what I'll do is I'll go through a list of organised crime people that you or your father have come across in some point in the past. So you were born and then you moved to New Jersey.
Yeah, I was 6 months old.
6 months old. So what was your upbringing like? How was your parenting? How was your father and your mother with you?
My parents, like, there was a big age gap between me and my brother. And he kept telling them, oh, I want a brother, I want a brother, I don't want to be an only child. So I was born, we go out to Jersey, and basically my father was coming back and forth, still coming to the city because he had the restaurant, he had a couple other things going. And my mother, at that time, she was a stay-at-home mother, because she didn't have to work. So we stayed over there. It was like my father would be away for days at a time, and then come home. And I remember as a kid, I used to have a lady that used to watch me, like a nanny type, a black woman. Her name was Viola, and she was the nicest lady. So like when my mother wanted to go out and go do stuff, she would call her up and say, Viola, could you watch Paddy? Because my brother would be in school and be out playing. And basically that was it. We were only there until February 71 because a big indictment came down in the city. My father and my uncle were on that indictment. So they got tips and they took off. It was Ash Wednesday of 1971. My father took off and my uncle. So basically I was without a father for about 3 years. And then we took over from there. We also had a house in Long Beach, Long Island. It was a bungalow they had bought. And we wound up moving out there because my mother hated it, out in Jersey. There was nothing out there to do. It was boring and everything. So once this all happened, my cousin wound up buying the house. So we go from there. My father already, he's gone. We didn't see him. Well, I should say I didn't see him till about 1973. But he was going around and sending money through other people to my mother. And, it was hard, Rob, because, as a kid, you don't know much, You see your father there and then all of a sudden he's gone.
Mm.
And I would be like, I tell my mother, where's Daddy? And she used to tell me, I'll never forget this. She says, your father lent the guy money and the guy bought drugs with it. And he got arrested and he told the cops that my father lent him the money. That was the story that I was told. Until I found out later on in life. So basically, everything, it was, well, there was tons of money there, I mean, not to say, there was love there, but it was, I can't really explain it because I was too young,
Yeah, you said you found out later about all this goings on, but how did you find out? Who told you?
My brother and my cousins.
Because they were old enough to understand.
Yeah, when they told me, I'll never forget it. We were sitting in the house, right? And we had a pound of weed, the old commercial dirt weed, and we're bagging it up and everything. So I turn around and say to them, I go, is Dad in the Mafia? They go, no. Because we surmised that, No, your father's not in the Mafia. And they didn't tell me right away, but after putting some things together, all right, they said he did his own thing.
Why did he? Sorry, continue, sorry.
No, he bookmake, he lent money out, just like anything. He took numbers. But his main thing was major narcotics distributions. You know what I'm saying?
What many people, yeah, I understand. Many people, I say many people, a small minority of people probably grow up to kind of like John Gotti, for example.
Yeah.
Just all they want to be is gangsters. All they want to be is made men. It's like, they've won the Holy Grail when they get into this unique club. Why did your father not, I guess with his wealth and his trustworthiness, I guess that he would have had an opportunity to go into that life, the Mafia, if he wanted to. How come he didn't? And I believe your uncles didn't either. Why did they not go into the mob?
Because back in the day, they were making so much money, right? Now you got to see something back in the day. All these wise guys that they all hang out on First Avenue. All the wise guys hung out on First Avenue, basically. And then on Pleasant Avenue, you had all the drug dealers, the bookmakers, the loan sharks, the degenerate gamblers. But my father was offered several times. They all were. And my father said, well, I don't want it. I don't need to answer to anybody. I don't need to give anybody my money. I'm going to do my own thing, But, he was close with Tony, and Tony was his protector. And then at holiday time, my father would go around, hit him off 25, 50,000, But Tony, if you ever hear Fat Tony, his thing was leave the junk alone, go out and steal. But meanwhile, he was taking money. Like when I told it with Sal, remember? On his show. And Sal goes, but he took the money. I says, what the fuck you think he's going to do? Not take the money, bro? But they had a certain understanding.
Did you ever meet Tony, Fat Tony?
Oh, yeah, plenty of times.
Tell me about him. What was his like? What was his aura about him? What was his character like? Where did you see him?
Well, the Palmer Boys Social Club was right down. It was 416 East 116th Street. And right up the block, we had a social club. We had 448. But it was right down the block, and we used to walk by there all the time. And Tony was right at a central casting with the hat, the cigar, the coat. And he used to walk by, and he'd go, what's up, kid? Where's your father? Where's your father? I said, Tony, you know where my father is. He used to laugh, He goes, I know what I meant, but where is he? What place? And I tell him where he was. Send him my regards, All right, Tony. But it was like that, and a lot of people, they look at me like, oh, he's full of fucking shit. Nah, all right, I'm full of shit. But I grew up in there, but I know them all, But he was really a nice guy, because when they were kids, my mother, they lived on 115, right, maybe like several buildings up for where Tony had the club. And at nighttime, when all they'd be coming home, going to a dance, they come home late, they watched all these kids and women. They watched out, nobody bothered them, because back then in that area, to be able to leave your door open in the middle of the night, your windows, nobody did nothing. Because they know they had a problem. So basically, he was a nice guy, he was, And they paint him as a murderer, this and that. Hey, allegedly he might, but what I know of Tony, very, very big number runner. Well, not number bank, I should say. He's made more money. And I don't know if you ever seen it in '86, there was, what was it, Esquire magazine. It was the 50th wealthiest mobsters. And on the cover of the thing was Fat Tony. I don't know how they got a list of the 50 most wealthiest mobsters. I don't know, they didn't have their tax returns or anything, like they worked a straight job. But basically, Michael Franzese was on that. He was number 18. He was the youngest one on that. And that I was trying to find that magazine. But
Gotti was on there as well, wasn't he?
Yeah, Gotti was 13. But the way they had it, and in order that they had it, it was like they had like Carmine Persico, and then Carmine Persico say is like 6, right? Then on top they got Jerry Lang, but come on, Carmine's the boss there. Everything is coming to him, but he's getting a majority of it. Tony Ducks was on there. There was a whole shitload of them.
Who was number one? Who was number one on that?
Fat Tony.
Fat Tony was the top?
Fat Tony was the most prolific earner.
Oh, right. Yeah, in the top 50.
They said he had all these number banks, and these things, like, I don't know how many he had, but just put it this way. And you're going back into like the 60s and 70s. Each one of them were grossing at least $2 million. a year. So you take that and you multiply that by how many he had around. Plus, you ever hear of Spanish Raymond Marquez?
Who? Sorry?
Spanish Raymond Marquez.
No.
It's called Spanish Raymond. Was on the west side of Harlem. He was the number king of the west side of Harlem. But he had turned into Tony, you know? But they had so much money, it was fucking insane, you know? He used to keep $1 million in shoeboxes in his apartment. He had an apartment on 115th Street on the west side of First Avenue. And he used to sit, when he wasn't at his club, he used to sit in front of the fruit stand, and he lived right above on top. And he used to sit there with the cigar chomping away, and he just watched around, you know. And then when he had to do something, he went back to the club. But Tony was a sweetheart of a guy. He really was. People got to take it. Yeah.
So did you say that you grew up on Long Beach, did you?
Yeah, basically I used to come back and forth. When we went to Jersey, we were in the city because my mother and father, they still had some of their brothers and sisters. My grandmother was still living there, you know? And then we left from Jersey when my father went on the lam. We had the house in Long Beach, and still we were coming back and forth visiting, you know? Because my grandmother and then my mother's sister and my mother's brother, my father's brother, you know, until all the times. So basically, I grew up there, and then later on, I started hanging out there in the mid-'80s, you know. My uncle had a social club, right, on Pleasant Avenue, 325 Pleasant Avenue was his social club.
There big stakes going on at that social club? You got any stories of people losing businesses?
In that club, basically, they used to play pinochle, you know, continental, you know, but back in the day, across the street from there, on Pleasant Avenue, on 117th Street, they had an apartment on the top, like in the 40s, the 50s, and the 60s. They used to call it the Hole. And it was a 3-bedroom apartment, which was used for gambling. And when I was a baby, and then my brother was a kid, you know, he could have been no more than 7, 8 years old, you know? Maybe not, a little later. Because I remember my mother would be cooking, and she'd tell my brother, Gary, go get your father, it's time to eat. So my brother said he would go in, and you would walk up the stairs, right, and they had a checkpoint. And, you know, they would search you, but if they knew you, they let you in. So now when you walked in, it's like a big living room type with a dining room, and they got a big table there, they got guys playing, and now you got stacks of money on top of this thing. They're playing for 3 or 4 days at a time, you know? And I remember one time my father made me laugh. He told me he lost $30,000. And he goes, I ain't going to worry about it. He goes, the only thing I'll do, I'll take some cut and throw it into the babanya. That's how I pay it, you know? He makes it up that way. So it was basically, you know, like you see in the movie, that's how it was. You know?
Didn't somebody own a business and they gambled their business?
Oh, forget it. That was my father back in the day when he first went out on the lam. Back in Jackson Township, New Jersey, which in 1976, they wound up building Great Adventure, Six Flags Great Adventure. So in 72, my father goes down there and he has a friend down there, this guy named Buddy. Buddy's fat. And he's like, you know, what they have over here, they don't have a sanitation. They don't have private sanitation. So my father buys a truck, you know, he gets around and everything. And now they're doing the route. Now one day he gets a call that Buddy Fat's playing cards. He's a degenerate gambler. He fucking loses the business playing fucking cards. Now my father bugs out. He's on the lam already, so he don't need no problem. He lost it. What does he owe? $30,000. Father goes down, pays it off, gets the business back. So now he's like, what am I going to do here? I got to have somebody run it. They wind up shutting it down, right? And Waste Management winds up coming and building and taking it over. And not even a year later, Great Adventure opens. Big, multi-million-dollar area. And this fucking fat bastard had to go and lose it. My father didn't want to be bothered. He was so disgusted. That was one of the businesses, you know?
Wow.
I mean, come on, ridiculous. Because my father wasn't the type. He would open a business, run it for a little while, and then he'd be like, all right, like my godfather, his name was Martino Di Vasario. They used to call him Big Dad Jinx because he was like a jinx. Big dude, about 6'4", 250, built like a fucking upside down V. And the restaurant I told you in '64, my father had when we took off. He left it to my uncle, my godfather. So he wound up back in the '60s. He wanted to turn it into a gay nightclub, you know, which were big, you know, money makers. So it winds up that the place is getting noticed. There was wise guys hanging around trying to shake the place down, and a fight breaks out. And some guy gets slashed in the face, across his whole face. And my father said, you know, the cops came in, they shut it down, basically, you know. So my father, what are you going to do? You know, throw it away. That's how it was. We'll waste of something else, you know. But I'm going to tell you a funny story. Years later, right, we're on the land with my father. It was about 1977, right? So we used to go out on Long Island, right? So one night, me, him, and my mother, I was a kid. He goes, they had a trotter, a racetrack out in Shirley, Long Island. It was called Par Meadows. It was the Trotters, right? So we go there. I'll never forget this. And my father, I was a kid, man. I was like 11 years old. And he was showing me how to bet. You know, when you go to the window, you bet the horses. He walks up to the window, right? And he's sitting there. He goes, all right, give me 2, 3 exact $100, you know, $100 box, this and that. But the guy's standing there, and he's looking at him, you know. And he turns around and he goes, "You look familiar, man." And he goes, "I know you from somewhere, Father. I don't know you. You don't know me." All of a sudden, he turns around and he goes, "Pontiac." He goes, "Who's Pontiac?" My father goes. He's going, "Pontiac, it's you." He goes, "I don't know who you're talking about." So he makes the bet. We go back, and he goes to my mother. He goes, "You fucking wouldn't believe who I just ran into." I was like, "Who?" She goes, "Remember when Jinx had the place? And the guy that got slashed with the bottle? He was an Irish guy. His name was Frank O'Leary. He made my father. We took off that day, you know, because he was on the run, you know. And it was so ironic that, like, you know, my father denied it. You know, like they say, you rob the church and you got the steeple sticking out of your ass, you're going to deny it, you know. But I remember that as, like, second nature. That's how wild that was.
Let's talk about, before we talk about your father's and your uncle's stints in prison, some of the fascinating stories. Let's talk about the people your father, your uncles, met, organised crime members. So let me rephrase that. Let's talk about some organised crime people that you or your family have met over the years. Right.
Okay.
So, Frank Lucas. Now, you've mentioned Frank Lucas. Any other story? He was depicted in the film, The American Gangster.
Yeah.
Famous film, big over here at the time as well. What do you... any other stories on him?
No, that was basically just that one time, and he got, right after that happened, they raided him, you know, and they locked him up, and he went to Lewisburg, and he wound up becoming a rat, you know. He ratted out the whole force, he ratted everybody out, you know. And then my father also, back in the day when he got out in '92, it was funny. Because him and my brother back in '92, they had the same parole officer. And when we used to go and report, I used to take them there, and we would pull up in front. And depending on who wanted to get out first, because they would let them both go report together, which I don't know why. Father and son. So all of a sudden, we let my brother out. He goes in, and we move down and we park. So we're sitting there parked. And all of a sudden, I'm looking around, and I see this car speeding towards us. And he comes flying around and skids by us. The window opens. He goes, "Hey, Paddy, Pontiac, what's up? How are you?" You know, I'm looking at him. I said to myself, this guy looks familiar, you know. He goes, "Listen, I just wanted to come over to say hello to you." You know? He goes, "How you doing? How you doing?" All right. So he goes, "All right, let me get out of here before we get violated." So he leaves. I go, "Dad, who was that? You look so familiar." That was Sonny Franzese. Now, at that time, Sonny Franzese is the underboss of the Colombo crime family. Now, that's how much respect my father had. He'd come and see my father. He didn't have to come see my father and parole, to come and see him in parole and take a chance like that. My father was well respected and he was well loved and liked because he helped everyone. And that wound up being one of his downfalls, being too generous. You know, people take advantage. You know what I'm saying, Rob?
I know what you're saying. Michael Francese's dad, father, Sonny Franzese, notorious, isn't he, for going back into prison, violating parole.
Yeah, he was always consorting, you know, he just couldn't help it, you know.
So did you meet him?
I met him that day.
You met him that day. What did he seem like to you? Oh yeah, sorry, go on.
At that time, he was in his mid-70s. He had just came out in 94, you know, on a violation. You know, because Tony always had a lazy eye. You know, like if you look at him when he was in his mid-70s, he had like a little lazy eye. That's why when I looked at him, I was like, "Who is this?" You know. But you know, he was a nice guy. You know. But my father, I don't think he knew him from the street. He must have met him while they were incarcerated. You know, because Sonny didn't like drugs. He was very against drugs. You know. So that's what happened there. You know.
Johnny Echoes, featured in the Goodfellas. You got a story with him, I believe.
Johnny Two-Time, Johnny Echoes, you know? No, Johnny Echoes basically, when my father was doing his last bid, when he got pinched to my uncle in 99. My father wound up, he had a heart, but he wound up having congestive heart failure. And he was supposed to get, he had a bad hip, he had a hip replacement in the mid-'80s when they did it in Springfield, Missouri. So this time, he's in Fort Devens, which is right outside of Boston. It's a FMC, Federal Medical Center. So he's talking with Johnny Echoes, you know, and they're doing their laundry. And all of a sudden, my father drops and hits the floor. And Johnny's looking, so Johnny runs to go get, you know, it was at night. It was like 10, like almost a quarter to 11. Runs to go get. They had one PA on, right, for like 1,200 inmate patients. They left my father on the floor for 45 minutes, and Echoes is cursing them up and down. You know, "Johnny, what the fuck are you doing?" They made him die on the floor. You know. And Johnny, you know, I mean, he was upset about it, you know. I mean, they were friends, you know. Not where they hung out, but they did business together, you know. But Johnny was a lot younger than my father. Johnny was at least 10 years younger than my father, you know. So basically, you know, they knew each other. "Hey, how you doing? How you doing?" But basically, he did his thing, and my father did his other thing. You know, they were both big top narcotics. Let's put it that way. But my father went back way before them, you know. They were older, you know.
Yeah, so Johnny Echoes was actually the last person that your father ever saw.
Exactly.
Wow. Herbie Spearing.
Herbie Sperling.
Pizza Connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. How have you come across him? I think it was your uncle, wasn't it?
Yeah, my uncle back in 70. Well, let's put it this way. There's a story that comes before that. Just say he goes to Lewisburg in 77, you know? And he heard of this Herbie Sparrow and everything, never met him. And they wind up becoming, best friends. They wind up hanging out together, you know? So before that, we were going up every month. Me and my brother and Herbie's two sons, Nicky and Guy. His oldest was Nicky, his youngest was Guy, and they had a middle one, Gus. So every month they used to call us, get up here, get up here, get up here. All right, we will go. So, Lewisburg from New York was a 3.5 hour ride each way. And we would go up there. And we're like, what's going on? You know, and they're like, all right, we need you to go see this. Go to Florida, go see Ray, go see what's going on. You know, and I'm like, what's happening? Shut up. Just go do what you're told, you know? And basically that was it. You see Herbie every figure month. Herbie was a good guy, you know, but he was very brash, tough Jew. You know, he was the first one to get natural life without parole. You know? And he had got first Nicky Barnes had gotten that same sentence. But Nicky Barnes turned government informant. So Herbie Sperling, when Herbie got pinched, it was in 73 or something. But they didn't give him that natural life. It's called A, like in Albert, A48, which means natural life in jail without the possibility of parole. So he had gotten that later because, excuse me, wait, let me take a drink. I'm getting dry, I'm talking too much.
No, so you want a break at all? Just let me know.
No, I'm good. But I'm saying Nicky Barnes had gotten that sentence in 1978. You know? But Herbie had gotten pinched in 73, but he was locked up. But he didn't get that natural life till after he had cooperated, what's his name? Nicky Barnes. You know, so we used to go up there and visit him, and they'd be like, go see this guy, this guy's got some weed, go see this guy's got coke, this guy's got that. You know, and back then I was a kid, you know, I was like 22, 23 years old. You know, and my father was still incarcerated. You know, so every month we'd make the trip. And, you know, after a while, you know, there was not much done there, you know, but what I didn't know back then was basically my uncle and Herbie, my uncle's two sons and Herbie's two sons, they were moving packages of babanya like crazy. And he didn't even tell my father. My father's locked up. Didn't even give my father a dime. My father was fucking furious, man. Yeah. You know? Like, how the fuck? I took care of you all your fucking life. My father did. No one would do business with my uncles unless my father said it was okay. Because he was the one with the word, the golden word. He was very well trusted, very well respected. But then my father got more hurt and mad of what my uncle did. It's like, come on, I do this all your life, and then you go around, like my father said, not discriminating nobody, you know. You go fucking deal with a Jew of your own kind, you know. That's the way it was back then, you know. No, you know, disrespect, you know, that's the way it was. And you don't even put nothing in my commissary? I mean, my father was getting commissary from other people, your own brother. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It hurt him, you know. And then he found out when we were going up there, it didn't please him too much either. You know, and then when he came out, his first thing was to go to his parole officer, I want to go see my brother. And he went up there, you know, and they would talk. And then when me and my brother would go up there to visit, we would take out Herbie and my uncle. And then my father would say, oh, go get some food. That meant they wanted to talk, you know? But basically that was that. And I guess he told them what was on his mind. And how the fuck could you do that? You know the position I was in. You know, thank God he had other people, you know, sending him money, you know. But it was more hurt than that man. Yeah, you know?
Did they make up in the end, or was it always an
Oh,
issue?
yeah, they made up. Of course they made up. But, I mean, it's like, if your brother does that, and you're locked up somewhere, hey, at least they throw me a bone or something, Because all
Yeah,
the money
especially.
was going to his kids, and then he was taking care of, my cousins were taking care of their mother's sister and everything. Well, what happened to me? I'm your fucking blood, you know what I mean? You don't even fucking give me a nickel. You know what I'm saying? Well,
I know what you're saying. Ernie Boy.
I'm Monty. Yeah, of course, Ernie Boy. I never met Ernie Boy, but Ernie Boy, see, that's another guy right there, Ernie. He was the youngest out of the Purple Gang. He was a kid. Nah, he was young. He was about 29 years old. But Ernie wound up being actually the only guy. He had gotten the same sentence Herbie Sperlin had gotten, the 848, natural life without parole. He's the only guy ever in the country, maybe in the world. He beat an 848 on appeal, which is like fucking getting struck with lightning 5 times. It's very, very, very hard. You're lucky, I mean, if you could beat a regular case. But he beat that case, And then he wound up fucking up and getting arrested again. And they threw it at him again. And now he's sitting in prison. He was in Marion. I don't know if he was in the Supermax, but he was locked up in Marion. There's a video on YouTube that's some hack, that told the story about Ernie Boy. That he was doing deals out of Marion and all this shit, But I never met Ernie Boy,
Did your father or uncles meet Ernie Boy?
Did he what?
Did your fathers or uncles ever come across him?
Yeah, but he was a lot younger than him when he was a kid. Ernie Boy right now, I would say he's got to be in the 70s, mid to late 70s. But yeah, I mean, my father, if he was alive, he would have been 100 years old today.
Yeah.
Not today, 100 years old. And my uncle would have been 91. And my other uncle would have been 112. So there's a lot of fucking years there, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, of course.
Well, they knew it all.
Ernie Boy was arrested with guns and drugs, wasn't he? And the police said if he could get like $70,000 to them, then he wouldn't be charged.
Well, that's the way they were back then, I mean,
so I'm assuming he wasn't able to get the $70,000 to the cops, or did he?
A lot of these guys have pride, It's like, hey, giving them all these years, all this money, it becomes like an enigma, Like, I mean, the police had their own little shakedown schemes,
Your family paid cops, didn't they?
Oh,
I suppose that's not so surprising when you think about it. But
please, another one. Basically, back in the 60s, and I remember French Connection, the movie?
Yeah.
Okay. Popeye Doyle, it was Eddie Egan and Sonny Grasso, who became a famous director and producer. They used to sit down in Rayo's restaurant in East Harlem.
Cops.
Yeah, they were the French Connection cops. They were New York City detectives, yeah. And they would sit there, and I used to call them, they would have their own little group of flunkies, like, all right, it's the time of the month, you guys got to go out and collect for us, And I told this is a funny story. The Chatting with Stacks video, see Chatting with Stacks? Did you watch that? The first one I did?
I did, yeah.
Okay. He wound up being a scumbag. Like, now he's got Sonny Grasso Jr. is his partner right now,
Sorry, who ended up being a scumbag?
Stacks.
Really?
Yeah, real scumbag. I did on him. I went on his show. I did like 5 shows with him. And then one day, the day when I was called to come on with Sal Polisi and Adrian Martinez on that show, I called them up. I says, I got a call that they want me to come on their show. So he turns around about Sal and he goes, well, you know what he is, right? I said, what do you think? I'm an idiot. I said, but There's something about Sal that I have a tremendous amount of respect for. Don't get me wrong, when I was a kid, fuck these rats, these motherfuckers, you know. But even till to this day, you have some guys like Sal. Sal didn't do nothing maliciously. He had two young kids, and he was a thrill junkie, you know. And the guy had to do what he had to do. He didn't want his kids being spoiled like that or anything, you know. And he got tricked into testifying against John Gotti by the FBI. He allegedly, at the beginning, he had gotten caught for selling coke. He had moved upstate, all the way up, Port Jervis, basically. And he built himself a racetrack where they race cars. And he winds up coming down. He just put it this way, what they call it. He was real estate rich and paper poor. He had no money, you know, but he had real estate and all kinds of shit. So he goes, he's got to make money, so he goes down to do a coke deal with some girl that she was jumping around in bars, selling shit. And he goes to John Carneglia, which was with John Gotti's crew. And he borrows $25,000 from Johnny Carneglia and goes and buys, you know, a key here and there, flipping it back and forth. So he gets into a jam with this girl. She sets him up. You know, he gets pinched. So now he's sitting in jail. And back then, this was like 1984, they have him on $1 million bail. Like, that's unheard of. And it was only 4 ounces of coke. You know? So he's sitting there. So now he's thinking, that's why he had left New York. He wanted to get away from all this stuff, you know? Because he was saying, you know, my kids are seeing what's happening here. And that's when he broke away from all of them. Like Gotti and all them, Polivario, Tommy DeSimone, all of them. And he winds up getting pinched. So now he's saying to himself, you know, I got to get out of this jam, you know? So they had a judge in their pocket that people were paying off to throw cases, you know? So Sal did what he had to do, you know? He wound up setting the judge up, fuck him. You know, the cocksucker, he shouldn't be taking money anyway. You know, he's a Supreme Court justice. And he's taking bribes and letting people off. You know, so Sal did what he got to do. But when Sal signed the contract with the FBI, didn't read the fine print. You know what I'm saying? And that's how they tricked him. He was already, had gotten divorced and was in Hollywood. Because he was a screenwriter. He wrote screenplays and everything. And remember in 94, they made a movie, Getting Gotti, with Lorraine Bracco, who played Diane Jacqueline, the U.S. attorney in Queens and Brooklyn.
That was shortly after he was arrested, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, yeah. When he beat those cases, like the first one with the bribe and everything, and then when he went away in 92, this movie come out, Get Gotti. Sal wrote that movie, him and Henry Hill, but basically Sal did it. You know, just to get money, because Sal had gotten married again. You know, he split from his wife. And they had to get permission from Gotti and the family for them to do this movie. Yeah.
What, so, Gotti would let him?
Well, Gotti turned around. Gotti was already gone, you know? He was dead. He died in 19... No, excuse me. He was alive. I'm thinking he died in 92. He was alive. So they said to Sal, listen, we can't give you credit for the movie. He goes, I don't want the credit right now. He goes, I'm having a child and I want the money. So they gave him the money, and that was Sal writing that movie, Get Gotti. You know?
So when you say they gave him money, you mean the Gambino family gave Sal Polisi money?
No.
Oh, sorry, gave him the go-ahead. Gave him the go-ahead to do it.
They gave him the okay, but they said, Gotti said, he goes, oh, that Ubats and that Henry, they're fucking snitch fucking rats. Don't give them no recognition. So they wind up getting money out of it, because they wrote it. Sal wrote most of it, you know?
So was John Gotti going to get something out of this movie? Like, not financially or reputational?
Well, but that was the first time, the first movie they ever made about him.
Because it seems odd to me that they would. I thought they'd want to kill Sal Polisi rather than, give him the go ahead to make a movie on someone that he's testified and helped put in prison.
Well, Sal was in the witness protection program already, and he had split from his wife, and he went out to Hollywood, and Henry Hill was out there too. He came across, Henry knew somebody out there, and they both collaborated. And he told them, he goes, we can make a couple of dollars writing this. But what Sal didn't know, the figure that Henry Hill gave him, like Sal maybe got like about 40,000, and Henry Hill got about 80,000. So Henry beat him in a way, But the Gottis, they didn't know where he was. He had a different name,
Yeah, but whether they knew where he was or not, the fact that they gave him permission to do a movie on John Gotti, to me, is like,
well, you
weird.
figure it. Yeah, but you figure it, There was nothing basically about Gotti back then. There was nothing like today, the way it is today.
So what I'm saying is, I wonder, they must have had, if they gave Sal and Henry Hill the go-ahead to do a movie, Two Rats, a movie on like a stand-up gangster who Sal essentially put in prison. Surely they must have had something to gain for doing this. They wouldn't just say, "Oh, we like Sal Polisi, we're going to let him do," because obviously they hate him.
Of course, well, they got recognition out of it. Like I said, there wasn't nothing about Gotti. I mean, the HBO Gotti wasn't even out yet. That wasn't until '96. So that was basically the first trial.
When Gotti was put in prison, it was big news over here. When he was actually put in prison for life, I remember it. I remember watching it with my father, who was very interested in the Mafia, Godfather, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I was going to say I watched that movie last night, the Sinatra Club, that Sal Polisi also produced or was involved in at some stage, wasn't he?
Who?
Sal Polisi.
Yeah, who would you say was involved with it after that?
No. I said Sal Polisi was involved in it. I don't know to what extent he was involved in it, but he was involved in Sinatra Club movie.
Yeah,
it's on YouTube, by the way, if anyone wants to watch it.
Yeah, well, Sal basically, somebody put the money up for it. They made that movie for a little over $200,000, and whoever owns the rights to it, but Sal owns the characters to it. That's why we're going to do a sequel, because he owns the characters. He has the rights to the characters, him, Tommy DeSimone, the whole thing. Charlie Fatico, the whole crew over there. So that's what it is. That's how it works.
Is that in progress, or is it already being made, or is it going to be made?
It's not being written yet. We're looking for investors, but it's going to be a thing, As a matter of fact, I was just working. I put something on Facebook, but it wasn't taken yet. I got permission from Sal, and then we have another partner who I'm 58, Joey is 64. He knows Sal 50 years. Sal met him when he was 13 years old from the racing and everything. And he knows the producing company very, very well. They just made a movie called Mississippi Scholar.
Right.
And it premiered, and it was #1 in the Beverly Hills Film Festival, #1 rated right now.
Really?
Yeah.
Cool.
So right now, Sal's had this idea for a long time.
There you go.
To see.
There you go, everyone. If anyone fancies going watching a few movies, there's a few we've just name dropped, so look them up. So your family, so they did pay off the French Connections cops, didn't they?
Yeah, they were, like I said it in the other movie, it's 1,001% true. These guys were taking money and they trying to not, like I said, Sonny Grasso Jr. became Bill Stax' partner now. And like for some reason he turned on me because I remember when I was looking at the thing and I go, who's he got a new this Sonny Grasso? I go, that must be Sonny Grasso's kid. So I write in the chat. I go, hey, what's up? He sees it right away. He goes to the mic and he goes, Pasquale. He goes, fucking get out of here. We don't fucking need you. Go watch Gaydu, he calls. Jeff Nadu. You know, Nadu, Jeff. Sit down.
Sorry, why does it... Sorry, what have you supposedly done to upset him? I this first time I've heard of this, so...
I didn't do a fucking thing, bro. Like, and then I'm trying to call him, you know, and he's not answering me. I'm texting him. I said, what the fuck is your problem, bro? You know, because everything with him is, this guy's a rat. This guy's a fucking rat. Meanwhile, you're interviewing them. You know, he was a kid. He's only 48 years old. You know, but you know, I just pushed it to the side. You know, I went off on him. You know, I told him what I thought of him because he also Dominic Sicali sued him too. Stacks.
What do you mean sued him too? So you sued him as well, or someone else sued him?
No, I assumed Dominic Sicali, Mafia Roundtable.
Yeah, I know who Dominic Sicali is. As you just said also, so I just right. Okay.
Yeah, he sued Stacks, but I remember when Stacks said, I got a subpoena from E.G. Vodka, because he was going off on the company, you know, belittling the company, saying, this bullshit, they're lying. So whatever happens now, that there was a fraud case in between the owners of E.G. Vodka, but Dominic had nothing to do with it, and it had nothing to do with E.G. Vodka, and Stacks blew it all up. And then he winds up, they dismissed the case. They dropped the case because they knew he ain't got shit. You know, what are they going to get from Stacks? Stacks last Christmas, I'll never forget it. He was in Manhattan. It was like maybe a week before Christmas, and I call him up, and he's by Penn Station going back up to, Metro North. He's going home. So all of a sudden I hear him in his pocket. He goes, oh my God, I ain't got enough money to get home. Here we go. I mean, he's a nice guy. I go, what do you need? I need $8. So I throw him cash out in $10. You know, I can't go home. Thank you. Because right then and there he was doing a toy drive for kids, you know. He goes, I'll give it back to you. I said, no, you don't. Take the 10 and put it towards your toy drive, you know? And he just went like that, you know, because Stacks is a real scumbag. He thinks who he is, you know? And he's been around for like 3 years. But, I mean, you don't do shit like that to people who do the right thing by you. You know, and he comes on with this guy and calling this one a schmuck and that one an asshole. And then he puts a video up how he beat the case with Dominic Sicali. You know? A video. Oh, I won. And I'm saying to myself, this guy's a fucking jerk off, man. They pulled the case, they dismissed it because he didn't have nothing. He ain't got a pot to piss in. You know?
So just so people, if the We Push Back campaign, just so they don't wet their pants, even though you're not and you've never been in the life, have you ever been an informant?
No, me not.
Right, cool. Right, let's get on to more interesting things. And sorry, say it again.
Not at all.
Do what?
Nobody, not even me. I mean, I dibbled and dabbled, you know, but I wasn't on the level of my father and all that. You know, I mean, they don't make men like my father or my uncles and guys like Johnny Echoes and Sonny. These guys they rather die, which my father did, died in jail, than talk. And there was many a times they could have done it, but they didn't do it. I mean, I'm not holding nothing against nobody, but you do what you got to do, you know. But Sal is a class of his own. I totally respect Sal. He's a great guy, you know, and I don't hold nothing against him because my family, we don't come from Cosa Nostra. You know, we were renegades. We did our own thing. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Let's do a couple more people. Johnny Dio.
Johnny Diaguado.
Johnny Diaguado.
Yay. My father used to meet him every week in a steakhouse in Long Beach, New York. And I laughed, and they said to me, what was your father doing with Johnny? And I just laughed. I said, my father only did one thing. Either he was Shylock with him, or they were moving packages together with Johnny Diaguado every week. My brother told me this. And I was like, are you sure? He goes, yeah, I remember one time I went there. My brother was a kid. And Johnny Dio. Every week my father met him.
He was known for being involved in an acid attack, wasn't he? Blinding a newspaper columnist.
Yeah. Well, Johnny Dio was he was a union racketeer. He was a union delegate, but he wasn't. He was on the bill. They were shaking down the unions in the airports, the Teamsters and everything like that. That was his main thing.
And he helped Hoffa, didn't he, to become president of his union?
That was what's his name? Tony Provenzano.
Okay, well, I thought he had something to do with it. But also, did you hear about the attack, the acid attack on a newspaper columnist? Do you hear he was involved in that?
What year was that? I don't recall that.
No idea. Don't know what the year it was. You met the Vinny Basciano, I believe, didn't you? At some point?
Yeah. That was back in 1991, 92. I was bookmaking with basically. Well, they weren't my friends at that time. Now, one of them is deceased, which was, remember in Lefty Guns from Donnie Brasco?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, before Sonny Black was their captain, there was a guy called Mike Sabella, which was the captain of that crew back in the 70s when Galante had become boss. He was friends with Tyler Galante. That was his son. Mike Sabella's son, Artie Sabella, was a friend of mine. And then his brother-in-law, who is now a captain in the Bonanno family, Johnny Schiaramomano, a.k.a. Johnny Mulberry, who was a fucking jerk-off, that I was booking with them and I had the office. And I would tell them, I give them the number, and everybody calls up, you call the work in. Don't hold nothing. And I was hearing they were holding stuff. They were winning. They were holding money back for me. So one day, they wind up losing like fucking almost $5,000. The guy hit them for. Now they ain't got the money. So they go to Johnny's. At that time, he was on record with, his name was Mickey Bats Cardello. He was from Master Queens. And they borrowed the money for him, and they threw my name in the hat that I was partners with them. So all this shit's going down. They start threatening me on the phone. You better take the money. I says, listen, I told you I'm not fucking involved with it. I said, stop your shit. So he gets involved with this Mickey Bats and everything. And my father's not home yet. So now there's getting to be a problem, So my father's friend had came out, Nicky Bonino. Nicky Bonino was a junk pusher with the Lucchese crew. So when he came out, I remember he goes, Nicky's coming home, you go and see him. So when I went to go see Nicky in Woodside, Queens, like basically he was a wise guy. And I said, listen, I got the problem with this guy and everything, which they're trying to shake me down because I had nothing to do with it. I had something to do with it, but they weren't calling in the bets and they were holding it. But when they won, they took the money. But now they lost, they're claiming that I owe them money out of the $5,000. So it was almost 2 years I had to wait for my father to come home to go down to the sit down. But before that, when my father first came home, Vinny Basciano had his salon up in the Bronx called Hello Gorgeous. That's how he got his nickname. And my father, but he hated it. You couldn't call him that. He would correct you. He'd go, call me Vinny B from the Bronx.
I don't understand why, because surely if someone was calling me gorgeous, I'd take it as a compliment, wouldn't you?
Yeah, a lot of people say that, but he didn't like it. He didn't like it, Vinny, So we go in there. Yeah, we go in there, and my father's friend, Mikey Coco, he had already died. His wife was a beauticianist in Hello Gorgeous. So we're sitting there, my father's talking to the lady, we talked to her. And all of a sudden this guy walks in, and Terry, her name was, and she turns around and she introduces, she goes, well, her nephew hung out with Vinny. His name was Anthony Donato. And she introduces, she goes, my nephew Anthony, and this is his friend Vinny. So we know, we're shaking hands, hello, Hawaii. Vinny was about 33 back then. And we talk and everything. I was like, oh, you own the place? Nice place. He goes, yeah. He goes, and I just came home. And he showed me, lift up his leg, he had the ankle bracelet on, It was on house arrest. So I got to meet him there. And then when all this came down, I ended up having to sit down with them up in the Bronx in a bar called Del Chicos. And now my father's out of the can for 2 weeks. And he's walking into this bar that is notorious known for a hangout. We go we sit down. We had a guy from East Harlem, well-known guy named Angelo Prisco sit for us. But since we weren't Cosa Nostra, that's how it works. If you're not Cosa Nostra, you're wrong. You're already, you know what I mean? You lose. So I remember I was sitting there, and this motherfucker is lying like a fucking sieve. And I'm getting pissed off. My father's looking at me, and he's kicking me under the table. Shut up, your mouth, man. Shut up. All right, so we wind up losing, right? So my father tells them, when are we going to get paid? He goes, listen, I just came home, and let me get back on my feet. All right. So as they're walking out, I'm making a phone call on the phone to call down the block because my brother and my cousin were waiting in a restaurant down the block because they didn't come up. And he walks out. I shake Mickey Bass's hand, and then Johnny Mulberry puts his fucking hand out. I gave him a fucking nasty look. He's like, yeah, I'll talk to you later. I'm like, yeah, you motherfucker. And I whispered to him, I said, you ain't cock. I'm dead fucking serious. This is right. I am dead fucking serious.
Did you ever catch up with him?
No, I seen him, and when was it? I was hanging out at a friend of mine's house in 1997. We're watching the World Series when the Florida Marlins beat the Cleveland Indians. So I said, I'm going to go downstairs and go to the beer distributor across the street. I'm crossing across the street. All of a sudden I hear, hey, yo. And I look down, who is it? It's Johnny Mulberry. He's in a car with some other guy I know. And he goes, oh, I just came home from the can. I did 4 years. I said, well, fucking good for you. And he goes, you got anything for me? I said, well, what are you talking about? He goes, you lost. I said, John, let's fucking put it straight up on the table right now. You know you're fucking pulled. You know I know you're not. You're trying to shake me down, and you ain't getting cock. So go fuck yourself. And that was the last time I seen him. You're not going to pull that shit on me. I don't give a fuck. If I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but I was not wrong.
So run me through what happened then. So even though you lost the sit down, what did you have to do because you lost the sit down?
We had to pay them the money that they had to borrow to pay off the guy that beat them because they held the bets. And that's because I had broken away from them. That they were lying because they was like, oh, I called the office, and meanwhile it was my cousin's bookmaking office.
So did you pay them then?
No, they didn't get a dime for me.
So what happens there then? If something is in a sit down and somebody loses a sit down and then they don't do what they're supposed to do?
Well, basically in most cases, there's going to be a problem. But for some reason, they must have knew something because they didn't get paid, and my father knew this, and a couple other wise guys and friends of my father knew this, that it was bullshit. Because back then, you're talking 92. Joe Messino had just come out of jail, which my father was with Joe Messino. I had met Joe Messino in the mid-'80s up in Otisville. Who knows? Maybe it got back to Joe and this and that, but we never paid them. And I swear to God, to anybody, they never got paid.
Okay. Was your father What was your father's reaction to losing the sit down? I mean, you say you were pissed off. Was your dad more
Well,
calmer?
he was like, basically he wasn't a wise guy. He was a fucking, a street guy, But he yelled at me. He goes, "That's what you fucking get for hanging out with deadbeats."
Okay.
He yelled at me, And my
So you learnt
brother
a
all
lesson
the
from that.
time. Yeah, but all the time, my brother kept telling me, "Stay away from him. He's fucking trouble." I didn't listen, you know. So
What's
that's what I get,
what's
you
Vinny
know.
Basciano like? What did he come across as to you?
Vinny's a real nice guy, maybe like 5'8". Back then, he was only 33 years old. Maybe 180 pounds. Good looking guy, but nice guy.
Smart guy? Like
I would say
intelligent?
so. Yeah, I would say so, But I met him the first time, and then when I went to the sit down, he had walked in the bar, and he goes, "Oh, what are you doing here?" I was laughing. I said, "What else am I doing here, Vin?" He goes, "Yeah, I know all about it." He laughed, And back then, he wasn't even made back then.
Okay.
He wasn't
Okay.
even made yet.
So Joe Messina, you met him. What was the story there?
I met Joe, and I think it was about 85. He had just got convicted from when after the Donnie Brasco incident, he had taken off on the lam. And then he had a separate case, and then that was the three captains hit, when they killed the three captains, when they
Yeah.
shot them up. All right, he had he had a RICO case. So he was in there, and my father, the person, very friendly, and they liked him. So one day, we're getting up, we visit him. He goes, "Come here, I want you to meet my friend, Big Joey." I don't know who this guy is, me and my brother. We walk up there, and his big guy is sitting in a chair, So he walks up, and he goes, "Joey," he goes, "This is my son, Paddy, and my son, Gary." So we shook his hands. "Hello, how are you?" He talked for a couple of minutes, but his whole family was there. His wife used to come up in a big limousine, and they used to sneak in sandwiches everywhere, and their bras and their girdles and shit. But he seemed like a nice guy. My father got along with everybody, We were only sitting there for maybe 5 or 10 minutes, because it was the end of the visit. We were walking out, and Joe happened to be out there. But Joe seemed like a nice guy to me, But look what he wound up being. Look what happened to him,
Yeah, exactly. Right, let's do one last guy. This is a fascinating. This guy's a fascinating guy, Miguel Sindona.
Miguel
So he was
Sedona.
a Sicilian. He was a banker for the Vatican. The Gambino used him to manage their heroin profits,
Yep.
and he was fatally poisoned in prison after while serving a life sentence for the murder of a lawyer.
Yeah.
So, I reckon everyone should look this guy up because he's what a story he is. But yeah, you met him.
Miguel Sedona, yeah. My father had he got pinched on election day 1980, my father, the day that Ronald Reagan got elected. And we used to go into MCC in Manhattan, the federal lockup. And one day he was sitting there, having a visit. And this old guy sitting next to us, And my father he points over to him. He goes, "You see that guy there?" I go, "Yeah, who is he?" He goes, "That's Miguel Sedona." I go, "Who's Miguel Sedona?" He goes, "He was the head of the Vatican Bank with the Knights of Malta. He was, they were, I say that, swindling or finagling the money through the bank. And he embezzled all the money from the Vatican Bank. So over here, basically he got locked up over here because a guy, I'm trying to remember his name, Luigi Roncesvalli, he was a hitman from Sicily. And he couldn't get made in Sicily, so they sent him over to the United States. He gets arrested, right? So now he knew Sedona, and he was dealing with Sedona. His bail was $500 back then. He asked Sedona to bail him out. Sedona refuses him. So what does this guy do? He goes and turns on him. And he put him in, and he was at MCC with my father. This was about 81, early 82. And we met with him, hello, Hawaii. He had the broken English. How you doing with him? My name is Miguel, And I didn't know nothing back then. Until then, I read up on him and who he was, My father was always coming across these guys, because my father was a well-liked man, very well-liked and very well-respected, even though he didn't have this button, he didn't want it, he didn't need it, but they respected him,
Do you think do you think your father would have been better off having a button, or do you think he did a smart thing, and your uncles, to not want it, not go down that route?
No, they didn't want it, and not a good thing. First of all, well, basically, because if you get that, they control you. You're gonna have to give so much money up to them depends on what family. Basically, the ironclad rule is some guys command 10%, some bosses command 25%. Like gas piping them when they took over the Lucchese family. They were telling all their captains they wanted 50% of their action. Well, my father was like, I don't need it. He never wanted it. He could have had it several times, but no thank you. Why do I got to pay them? Why do I got to give my money away? I don't need nobody. I'm my own self,
I guess the argument for that, the counter-argument to that, is that they would provide protection, supposedly, and also open opportunities for business, legal, I guess, or illegal.
Yeah, but my father had Tony. And Tony basically, he had asked my father. And my father said no, and he respected it, but also other places, because when you're a big earner, they didn't want to grab you as the goose with the golden egg, They want people with money around them so they can take advantage of you, and use you. Well, my father was too smart for that, and didn't want it,
Would you consider, or do you think he would consider himself a mob associate? Would he call himself that? Would you call him that?
Basically, yeah. That's what it is in all the books that he was in. I don't know if you've ever seen. It's a black hardcover book, right? And it's it's called Mafia. It says Mafia in green, and it was from the Department of what's the name? Department of shit. There was a DEA and the Department of something. It's a big green hardcover book. It's a book of mugshots.
Okay.
And in the book, there was a picture. I had it on my old phone, and I lost my old phone. And there's a picture of a mugshot, and it's a full page. And it's my uncle Benny, my Uncle John is a mugshot of him. And then there's this description of who he is, who he's related to, my father, my uncle, my grandmother was in there, and what their MO was, and where they hung out, and this and that. And then when you go through the index, you go through it, and I remember looking, and I come on the P, and it says it right there, Pontiac Brothers.
So this is an official, government document, a government book?
Yeah, I'm trying, department, oh man.
No, that's cool.
The one that makes all the money. What do they call them? I can't, it's on the tip of my tongue.
It'll be called the Treasury here.
Treasury, that's it. Department of Treasury, you got it. Department of Treasury and the DEA. It's a big, it's about almost 600 pages, and it's called Mafia. It's a big black hardcover book, and Mafia in green, and it's about almost 600 pages.
Wow.
And I remember seeing that book, and I wind up going through it, and who do I see? You could pick it up too on Pinterest too, and you tap in the name. Yeah, you tap in the name. Well, my uncle's picture comes up, John Anthony Malizia, or my father's name, Pontiac Brothers, and the picture will come up the whole page.
Okay. Let's talk about some your family, like a fascinating family. And I'll put some links to the description of these so people can read the cases.
No problem.
Jailbreak. in 1974. That's an absolutely crazy story. That was your uncle, wasn't it? Richard. Was it Richard
No,
Masalia?
that's my cousin. That was my uncle Ernie, my father's younger
Okay.
brother, his youngest brother.
Sorry.
That was when I told you when my father, when they ran away in 1971, then when they went on the lam when the indictments came down. Him and my uncle, they took off together. And my uncle was like a wild man. He would never listen to nothing, you know? And my father was way under the radar. So he basically, my uncle, like in 73, was hanging out with these guys, and my father didn't like them. He goes, listen, you don't listen to me, Ernie. He goes, either you get rid of them or we split, you know? And my uncle, as it was, never listened. So they wind up splitting. My father went his way. That's when my father went down to work with the garbage company with Fat Boy Fat. And my uncle went with this guy, Mario Perna. And that's when they went to Frank Lucas in that area. So, hold on, let me drink something. My mouth is dry. Ooh. So, what happens is, he, in 73, he's on the run, right? And now back then they used to have these licenses back in America. You would have paper licenses without the pictures. And when you had gotten your license back then, there was an A side, like an A card, and they had a B side to it. You know, it was like your conviction stub on one side and your license with your name on the other side. They had a guy from the Department of Motor Vehicles, and they were paying this guy. So, like, say you got a license, right? Rob May, okay? So now he was taking the license and making copies of it and selling them to all these guys. And they were going through that, you know, and they got these licenses. And my uncle's running around. He's up in Rockland County, and he winds up running a red light. So the cop stops him, and the guy, he gives him this ID on it. And I think the guy, on the name on it was Harry Lucas. I don't fucking laugh. They let him go. And a couple of months later, something else happens. So now he produces another ID with a different name. And they run a warrant, and for some reason they wind up catching him on the indictment. My father's still away. They grabbed him. This was January of 74. So they lock him up in West Street. And back then it was quick. Like now these days, you sit in prison a year or two before you go to trial. Well, if you cop a plea. So my uncle goes to court. And I don't know if he took a plea or he lost the case. He wound up getting 15 years or something like that. So he's in West Street now. So now he's sitting there, and he's got this guy, Mario Perna, that was in there. You had the guy from the French Connection, the old man, the Frog. That was his nickname. The one they remember in the movie when they taken the car off the boat, the Lincoln Continental. Right. And he was the old man that Roy Scheider and what's his name, Gene Hackman, Popeye Doyle, and Eddie Egan, they're chasing him. He was one of the guys that was with my uncle, and there was a total of 6 of them, you know. And basically, they start this thing, my uncle, to brainstorm to break out of West Street, because West Street was a very old lockup, and they were building the new MCC down on Park Road that opened up in 75. So what happens, there was a priest that was there, the chaplain. You know, they wanted to make him friends with the chaplain, and, you know, the chaplain likes them, and they're asking him for him to do favors. He's going out doing them favors. So one day, they send him somewhere. They ask him, could you go pick up something for us? You know, they hit him off for a couple of hours. So he comes back with a box with styrofoam in it. So now Somebody had spoken to one of the guards or several of them combined with the priest. They wound up bribing them. They came up with a price of $50,000. Now, my uncle's locked up in there with all these guys. Now this is weird. Now he's sending word to my father. He's telling Paddy, I need money. So now my father starts breaking his balls. Oh, you forgot. When you did all your bullshit, you used to fucking not come back and give me anything. Well, my father puts up the money, the $50,000. They get the key. They push it into the styrofoam. And the chaplain, they give it to him. So now he's not even asking questions because he was corrupt. Takes it out, gets a key made, brings it back to them. So now they get everything. They get ready to go. And this is September of 74. They got the key. They got everything. They're ready to go. They walk out. My uncle pulls out the key. Right? Puts it inside the door. He goes to turn it. The fucking thing don't work. Now he's flipping out. He gets mad. And like on top of you got conduit running, in all these places. So he jumps up. He grabs a piece of conduit, lifts himself, and with his legs kicks the door and it pops wide open. And they all run out on a Sunday morning. They escape. And my cousin Richie's waiting up the block, my uncle's second oldest son. And they get away. And it was all over the place, because I remember Sal told me when Sal was in Lewisburg when this happened. And he goes, I remember hearing about that. But the government keep it quiet because they don't want nobody to know what happened. So now right after that, they close West Street because MCC is opening. But they try to hide it, because they were embarrassed. That's why they built this new state-of-the-art barless prison and downtown in Park Row in Manhattan, and Work Street, Pearl Street. So that's what it was. He wound up breaking out of there. And two of the guys, the guy that he was with, the guy Mario Perna, wound up being a government informant. So he gets pinched. Now he's talking. He turns bad. The guy from France gets away and goes back to France. So now they're looking around. They'll find out that this guy from France, he goes to France. He goes home. They wind up finding him dead somewhere in an alley, And then Mario Perna becomes a cooperator. And the other three guys that got caught, my uncle was the last one. He was out there. And he was hanging out down in Miami Beach with all the Cubans on Flagler Street. He was crazy, my uncle. And one day in 77, because he used to come back and forth on the plane and come up and go see his family because they were living in the New York area. So he gets on the plane, and again, with the fake ID. He produces it, and they were leaning on him. They were watching him. And this guy, Boom Boom, this cop named Boom Boom, winds up grabbing him. They wind up arresting him, and that's it. And that's where it comes into, where he goes into Lewisburg and he meets Herbie Sperling. You know what I'm saying? That's that. And my father was still out there. He was the only one left because my father was very, very down low. He used to trench under. They couldn't find my father. In 77, 78, they came out with the FBI that he was on the top 10 most wanted fugitives in the country. Yeah.
Going back to the jailbreak, the kind of fallout from the jailbreak is interesting as well. Yeah, like you say, one of the fugitives was murdered in Paris. The priest got a suspended sentence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think I remember his name, Father Tashetta or something like that.
Right. He pled guilty to taking an envelope outside a prison for the prisoners. But his defence was that he didn't realise that the key was in one of the parcels. Yeah. Do you believe that?
I'll be honest with you, not really.
No. And the judge called him. I got
I
the,
mean, Green.
the judge called him a misguided Robin Hood.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's what happens with greed. Greed comes in all types of forms, and it's a killer. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, I know what
And
you
that was
mean.
a lot. $50,000 back in 1974 was a lot, ton of money. It's like about 5 million today.
Yeah, it's a lot of money. Your cousin Richard Malizia, 1983. What happened to him?
83. No, before that, 78.
Okay, let's go with 78.
December of 78. My cousin, well, my uncle, well, basically, my uncle had four boys and one girl. The oldest one, Ernie Jr., wound up disappearing. He stabbed some guy up and he got into a car with him. They never seen him again. So now what happens is my cousin Ricky, takes over, like passing down the apple, you know what I'm saying? So now he's doing the thing that my father is still out there and his father is locked up. So now my father is on the lam and he's feeding my cousin, giving him. And you had all these black dealers on the west side. Now there was simply this one guy whose name was Goldfinger Terrell. William Goldfinger Terrell, because he wore gold all over every finger, They find out that they were working with him. Now they find out he's a rat, and that he's setting people up. And he was ready to set up members of the Purple Gang back then. All them, Johnny Echoes, Fat Gigi, Janaz and all of them, and then Michael Meldish, Joey Meldish. So my uncle gets word of this, and tells them, they were like, "Yo, what do you want us to do, Dad?" I'm like, he tells them, "You know what you got to do." Okay? They meet him. They were calling the house, my cousin. And his Goldfinger's, I believe it was his girlfriend or his wife. One day, she picks up the phone, and he's asking, where's Terrell? Where's Goldfinger? Because he hadn't been around in a while. And she goes, I'll tell him when he's around, you're looking for him. So she basically, right there is a witness, right there. So on the night, I believe it was December 28th, it was right after Christmas, 1978, they make a meet. And Goldfinger owes them money, and he wants to purchase something else, So now they go up to, it was about 12 midnight at night, and they go down to 204th Street and Broadway, which that's Upper Manhattan, which they call Inwood, past Washington Heights. So they're sitting there waiting for him. He pulls up, like, it was a two-way street, okay? Now, on the side of Broadway is Terrell Goldfinger and his brother, which his name was Harry, but they used to call him Frog, the Frog. Down on the opposite end, my cousin and two guys are sitting in the car waiting for Terrell to come there. So Terrell walks down the block, and he's got like a bag over his, like a money bag, look like a camera bag. So he comes over, he gets in the car. All right, so they tell him, all right, you got to settle up with us first. So they settle up. And he turns around and he goes, well, you got something for me? He goes, yeah, I got something for you. So he motions to the back. He goes, give it to him. They open up with an Uzi, with a silencer. They start shooting, they blast him, fucking half his head's off. And they take off in the car. So now he's dead, Goldfinger, and they're heading for the brother to take the brother out. And this is like 12:30 in the morning. They get near the brother, right? They shoot him 11 times. And One of the guys comes out with a 357 Magnum. They give him the coup de grace. All of a sudden, around the corner, a marked police car starts fucking with the sirens. And now they're going, holy shit, the cops. We're going to have to shoot it out with them. So my cousin goes to take off. They stop about 100 yards before there was a bar fight. The cops jump out of the car and run in the bar. They were like, fuck. Well, what are they going to do? They take off. And now they find out that the brother, they didn't get the brother. The brother's still alive. So now they're telling my cousin, go with your uncle. Go on the land. And he's telling me, don't worry. He's not going to say anything. He's petrified. So what do you think happens? The brother turns evidence, state evidence. So now my cousin goes to court. He goes, I don't know if they offer him a plea or not, but he goes to court. His first trial is a hung jury. So now after that, they give him a plea. They tell him, all right, 6 to 12 years, we'll give you a plea. He refuses it. So now, I don't know if it was maybe a week or two later, they go back for a second trial. In 1 hour, my cousin is convicted, sentenced to 33 1/3 years to life in prison. For murder, attempted murder, possession of a firearm. It was unreal. So
is he out now?
He's out right now. He just made 10 years he's out. And he's working for his ex-brother-in-law who has a big construction company. He's doing very well. He adjusted. I don't know how he adjusted after doing all that time. I asked him, I said, Rick, he told me, I had to laugh one time. He goes, when I first went up, they send him all the way up to Dannemora, Clinton State, Dannemora, which is a horrible fucking state prison.
That's where Lucky Luciano was.
Yeah. So he goes, when they brought him down, he started there, and then he went to Auburn first. He was there in Auburn for 3 years, then they transferred him to Dannemora. He did about 1.5 years there, and then they brought him down to Greenhaven, which is a maximum security prison. And he starts running, right? Becomes a marathoner, running 15, 20 miles a day. That's what I said to him. I said, that kept you busy, right? He goes, Paddy, you wouldn't believe it. He goes, that fucking 35 years and a half years flew. I go, flew? He went in when he was 25. He came out when he was 60. And thank God bless, I don't know how he adjusted from doing all that time. And he's working now. He's going to be 71 July 8th. And he's doing great, Isn't that amazing, bro?
Yeah, it is amazing. It's good to hear a success story. Other than most of the time, people come out of prison, or you hear it a lot, and then they just go back into their old ways. So it's good that he's
basically he came out because his ex-brother-in-law basically still active. He's with the Genovese crime family, but he owns this huge construction company, and he used to go and visit my cousin all the time, put money in his car, and say he almost became a billionaire, this guy. I told him money he had. He was on the Windows trial in Manhattan. And
what was his name?
Carmine Della Cava.
Carmine Della Cava, okay.
Yeah, you fix it up. He has a very big construction company, but there was a certain story about him years ago. Like the Meldish brothers, Joey and Michael Meldish, the Purple Gang. They got into a beef with this Carmine. And back then, Carmine was just a regular guy. My cousin was married to a sister. They were childhood sweethearts. And Carmine, one day they're in a bar, the Half Crown Bar up in Throgs Neck, New York, right? And all the Purples are there, Joey and Michael Meldish. And for some reason, Carmine gets into a beef with Joey and Michael. So they jump him, they beat him down in the bathroom, they knock him out on the floor, and they literally pulled down their pants and pissed on him, urinated on him. He got up, he was embarrassed, and he went back and he told my cousin what happened. And my cousin says, "Come on, I'm packed. Let's go retaliate." He goes, "No,
What was your cousin's name?
Same cousin, my cousin Ricky.
Oh, cousin Ricky. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Back then. He goes, "Come on, we're going to retaliate." And Carmine goes, "No, don't worry about it." Never retaliated for what happened to him. So basically, Dominic Sicali did a story about him like that when Carmine got pissed on, and they wind up making him because he got mad saying, "How the fuck do you make a guy like that? Like a guy that gets pissed on and don't retaliate, you're going to make him my equal?" That's how it was.
I think 1983 might have been the date of the newspaper, and I wonder if 1978 was when the incident happened with your cousin. But if he was arrested, then he
got arrested in '79, where he went to report. He went to report.
I don't want to labour on this point, but I guess because of the mistrials and things like that, maybe 1983 was when he finally got sentenced to.
Because he had,
right, cool.
He had Alan Dershowitz do an appeal for him. You heard Alan
yes, he's been caught up in this Prince Andrew scandal, and and also I saw him as well. I watched White Boy Rick. You know, the Detroit drug dealer. He helped him get out of prison,
but he wrote an appeal up for my cousin. Of course, my cousin's brother $80,000, and he lost the appeal. My cousin lost 2 appeals, and then he went for a reduction in sentence. They denied him, and he just did all his time. He did the 33 and a third, right? Went in front of the parole board. They knocked him down. They said, "Come back in 2 years." But meanwhile, he was in prison. He was a model inmate. He worked for the chaplain for 28 years in the chaplain's office. He used to clean up, he used to hang out. And when he went the second time, he went in front of the parole. They were like, "You did all this?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I was a kid, 25 years old when this all happened."
I bet he wished for the same chaplain. That your uncle.
But basically that was between state and federal. They're 2 different animals.
Cool, right. So your 2005, your cousin Michael Chunk Londino. Can you say that? Londonio. Okay, cool. 2005, Michael Londonio.
What happened there? That was a big one. Mikey was a good kid. He was wild, me about 5'8", stocky, so he looked like a chunk of meat. That's how he got his nickname. Very strong, ballsy, And they were working together. He was a good kid, a smart kid. He used to work for years. He worked for ABC Studios, The View, the show The View. And he was a big hunter, and they used to go hunting all the time. And he had got bitten by a tick and contracted Lyme disease.
Oh.
Yeah. And then from there, he was a kid. He must have been about 15 years old because when he passed away, he was only 29, and his mind started to go. He was getting really crazy, So basically, what they were doing, he was hanging out with a guy named a skipper in the Genovese family named Ralphie Balsamo. He was hanging out with him. And nobody liked Ralphie. My cousin Chris didn't like him. Nobody didn't like him. Dominic Sicali hates him, So they're running his business, and they're selling coke, like by phone, and they're delivering everywhere. So they wind up getting into a jam, and now for some reason, this case is turned over to the New York State Troopers. For some reason, I don't know, like Vic was talking yesterday. Like, how did they get a hold of this case? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, I just want to... Can I just interlude on that? When you say Vic was talking yesterday, right, I did a live with an ex-NYPD detective called Vic Ferrari. He's got a YouTube channel, NYPD Through the Looking Glass. Check him out, he's brilliant. Please subscribe to him. So... Pasquale came on and was talking to Vic about this case and this event, and Vic actually knew the situation and lived close to the to where it happened, and he kind of talked. These guys talk extensively about it. What I'll do is I'll put a link in the description box if anyone wants to watch it. But yeah, okay. Sorry to interrupt.
Okay, so basically, what's going on is they're doing their thing and everything, and now everybody's telling him, his brother, and all of us were saying, Mikey, you got to tone it down, bro. You know, I mean, you're making it too known out there. Everybody's knowing. Basically, everybody's doing it, and he don't listen. See, I don't think because his state of mind, he'll be fine one time, and then one day he would just snap and like count his money, right? If he had 500 there, and there was only 480, he starts bugging out who took $20. But basically, one night he's in the house, and this kid that was with his crew, he used to come over the house all the time, and he used to break balls every time he came in the house. Well, my cousin Michael Sr., the father, you know, they come in, they break chops, hey, this and that, and break balls. This one day he comes, I'm trying to remember, it was like a Saturday night. Walks in the house, and basically, they look at him, don't even say hello, he's got a look on his face. And he goes into the room, my cousin, comes out. So now after that happens, the kid winds up being a cooperator. He allegedly hands him a hand grenade and several guns. And so everything, my cousin's hiding them. They're hiding them under the tree, in Christmas packs and Christmas presents, and out in the backyard and everything. So now this Monday night, December 6, 2005, 5:30 in the morning, there's a no-knock warrant issued by Judge Janine Pirro. She used to be on the People's Court. That was on Channel 7 years. It's still on, but she resigned from there and she took this job. So they go there and they don't even announce themselves. These no-knock warrants are no good. You know, because people could get killed and dangerous. They kicked the door in, and now across the street, his brother, my cousin Chris, lives across the street. He's getting ready for work, and his wife hears all this and looks out the window, and she's like, what the hell is going on out there? So now Chris hears this and sees this. He jets out of the house, and his wife is following him. There's cops everywhere, all over the place. He's trying to get to the house. So his wife gets in front of him. He shows his wife. They grab him. They arrest him for assault of his wife. And they holded him. So now they in the house. They go to my cousin. They go, you're coming with us. All right? So now he don't know. They don't even introduce themselves. They let him go in the room. They go get ready. He walks in the room. Comes out with a .45 and starts shooting. He hits one trooper in the head with the helmet on. He goes back, his gun discharges and hits the other trooper in the leg and the ankle. So now the other one, there was about 30 of these troopers in this little house. They unload up on my cousin. They shoot him, they kill him. They hit him in the eye and one right through his heart. So now he's on the floor in his room, and my cousin and her husband are in their bedroom because he had pushed them in. He said, stay in there. So now they hear shots, they don't know what's going on. And downstairs is my Uncle Carmine, which is Michael's mother, my cousin, father. He was 82 years old. So now they come in, they take everybody out of the house, they bring them down to the precinct. My cousin Michael, the father, not like he wouldn't take shit. He starts fighting with the cops. They throw him in a closet. They lock him in a closet, right? And now these cops, you know, they do questioning. They come in and out. You know, good cop, bad cop, you know. So now my cousins are like, you know, what the fuck is going on here? You know, I mean, you come crashing through the fucking door. You don't say nothing. So now there's a cop with an attitude, right? He walks out and he turns around and he goes, by the way, your son is dead. Oh my God. My cousin faints on the floor. My cousin Michael's in the closet going fucking bananas. My poor uncle turns fucking white. I'm surprised he didn't drop dead because Mikey was his favorite. And that's what happens. Now everybody, they all pled out till years, 8 years, 10 years, and this other kid who turned informant disappears. You know? My cousin's dead. You know? And it's a horror. You know? Very, very sad. You know? And I can remember that day I was working. You know? And he basically, come on, Stephen, what are you doing? All right, 5:15, he's coming home. Let me just say, Kate. Okay, hold on, Stephen, what are you doing? You know what I'm doing there, kiddo. Hold on, Rob. Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, hold on. All right, it's going through. Okay, 5:15, he's coming. All right, yeah, so basically, it was very sad.
It's okay, so let me talk about this next, your other cousin who you just mentioned there called Christopher. Let me just, because I know you're pushed for time, so I just want to get a few things in, hurry things up a little bit. And maybe when this drops, a day or two after, you could come on a live with me, and we could shoot the breeze there if you're willing to do so.
Man, no problem.
Spot on, right. I'm going to read this, okay?
My voice is starting to get hoarse, too, yeah?
I can imagine. Yeah. Okay, I'll do a lot of the talking for a bit, all right? Yeah. So about 5 years ago, your cousin Christopher, who you just mentioned, a reputed Lucchese crime family soldier, Matthew...
Legend.
I did say a reputed... All right, okay, alleged reputed, right. Matthew Madonna, alleged street boss, Steve Crayer and Terence Caldwell were convicted on various charges, the most serious being the murder of the notorious Purple Gang leader Michael Meldish in 2013, and they were sentenced to life. I love this bit. Before the conviction, federal prosecutors accused your cousin of plotting to escape Brooklyn's Metropolitan Detention Center while awaiting trial. He stockpiled... And you're going to go allegedly, but let's just, whatever. He stockpiled dental floss and bed sheets to help break out of his 8th floor cell. He also shed £200 from his giant £350 frame.
150 pounds.
All right, okay, well, or whatever. £150, £200 from his giant £350 frame so he could shimmy out the window. His attorney claimed the terrible conditions inside the lockup were the reason for his client's dramatic weight loss. And his attorney also told jurors that stockpiling sheets was not a crime after authorities found 17 bed sheets wadded under the mobster's bunk bed. That's a pretty one.
When they found them, right, they weren't even his cell. They were in 2 cells down. You know what I'm saying?
I think they had it in for him.
Yeah. And then they throw in that his mother, my cousin, snuck the dental floss into it. And they also said that when you looked out the window in the parking lot of MDC, that his estranged wife was dancing in the parking lot. And meanwhile, there's no cameras out there. That's what they're saying, all this fucking crazy shit. And they even throw in a priest who was trying to help. Go figure.
God, not another priest.
Yeah, another priest. These fucking friends, they're all fucking real. You know?
So you're saying that he got stitched up?
He what?
You're saying that he was stitched up by the feds?
Well, they were trying to, fucking, for some reason, fucking frame him. Because they wanted him to cooperate, which he would never do. That was his whole thing.
Where is he now?
He's in California. He's in penitentiary USP Victorville. It's in the Mojave Desert. It's about halfway between LA and Vegas.
Do you have anything to do with him? You close with him?
I basically, we were very close years ago, and then he started hanging out. And the last time I seen him was when they had him down. He was in Brooklyn House of Detention. Before all this happened, he got pinched in a car with guns and everything. Him and this other guy, Paddy Mayorino, he was from the Bananos. And they got into a beef with some guy, and they pointed the guns at him. And they're riding in the car, and they get caught. And meanwhile, he's in Rikers Island. They gave him 18 months. I think about it, a little less than a year. Comes out. 5 months later, this whole fucking shebang happens. And he's out on the street, and they pick him up. Meanwhile, there was no film, no gun, no witnesses. Only thing you had was three rats. You had Frank Pasquale III, John Panisi, and this guy, David Evangelista, who the cops let out of jail by mistake. They let him out. They thought he was somebody else.
Wow. And so are you talking about John Panisi, who's on YouTube?
Yeah. He didn't even get arrested, John Panisi. He said his grandmother from the grave told him to cooperate.
Yeah, I heard that.
The stories these people come up with, you know? So basically, that's what happened there, you know?
I mean, every informant has a reason for doing what they do, but I guess every criminal has a reason for doing it, or every person that's in prison has a reason for doing what they do. But
you know what I mean?
I think Panisi might be clutching at straws to think people are going to believe that his grandmother from the grave told him to do it. But also, Paddy, somebody that you could dream about telling you to do something doesn't necessarily mean you go and do it.
Exactly.
Right. I'm going to thank you for that. Brilliant. So let me talk a little bit. Save your voice. So let's talk about you for a little bit. So you grew up around all this crazy shit. So your father and uncles, big time drug dealers, bookmakers, number runners. Your cousins have been killed through stuff they've done, and members allegedly of organised crime. How the hell have you managed to stay out of this? Because you've got a trade behind you, haven't you? And you didn't go down the route of organised crime.
No. Basically, you know, when my father came home in '92, he had just come home and he was telling me, "Don't worry about it. Everything's going to be all right." I says, "Listen, Dad, if the world has changed here, it's not the way it used to be, you know?" All right, he goes, "Don't worry, it's me, this and that." I said, "Well, when you get out, you will see, you know?" So he gets out, and he's sitting around, and nobody's around, and he's looking for people, and people that he knows that owe him money are shying away from him. They don't want to be bothered, you know, because he had nothing, you know? So he was like, "I don't believe it's changed." I said, "That's what I told you, it's changed. You can't do anything." But meanwhile, a couple of years later, in 1998, this one guy named Jimmy Lofton, he was a black dealer from the West Side. He had diamond mines in Africa. He had all kinds of money. And he winds up, you know, he's with them, and I see this is going on. And he used to come down the avenue all the time, you know, and I'd be sitting there. I'd see him walk, and he goes, "Where's your father and your uncle?" I says, "They're in the club." I go in there. I says, "Jimmy's there." They go on the luncheonette, they're talking. So one day, basically, he disappears, right? And he's missing for like 6-8 months. I'm like, "Where the fuck did Jimmy go?" They can't find him or nothing. All of a sudden, he appears again one day, you know, and they're like, "Where the fuck were you?" And he says, "Oh, I went off on vacation. I had to take this." And now he bullshitted. But meanwhile, he tells my uncle and my father, he goes, "Listen, the mother load came in." Meanwhile, they're like, "Yeah." Oh my God. So one night, it's about 9 o'clock at night, My uncle calls my father, and he goes, come on, we got to go meet Jenny. And my father's like, Ernie, it's 9 o'clock at night. You're in the Bronx. You're 5 minutes. You go and meet him. You know, so my uncle goes down. He meets him, and he says, this guy, so fast, he goes, the mother-in-law came in. He grabs a key of coke and a key of dope. He throws it in my uncle's car. And my uncle's like, oh, don't you want your money? He goes, you give it to me when you have it. All right. So my uncle goes, and he goes to this diner on Fremont Avenue, and he meets a friend of his. So they were in there. It's like 10 o'clock at night, and they start to walk out, and all of a sudden they come out of nowhere. There was about 30 of them, drawing guns, get to the floor, down, boom, boom, boom.
How old was your father and your uncle at the time now? They must have been getting on a bit.
My father was 74, and my uncle was 60. They were 9 years apart. My uncle was 65. And they wound up arresting my uncle and this other guy. And the next day, all of a sudden, me and my brother were in the store, the pharmacy. And we're sitting there, and all of a sudden the phone rings. My brother picks it up. And he goes, hey, Dad, what's up? And all of a sudden, somebody gets on the phone, and he goes, hey, Gary, how are you? Well, he goes, who's this? Oh, I'm DEA agent so-and-so, you know? We got your father. You got my father for what? For narcotics, possession, and to sell a kilo of heroin and a kilo of cocaine. They set him right up. And then the balls, my father's 74 years old. He was in like a senior citizen complex. They're ringing the bell, right? And the father's answering the bell. And they're going, Paddy, come down here. Come on out. We're ready to fight it out. My father's like, are you fucking kidding me? He goes, are you fucking nuts? He goes, get your fucking asses up here. He rings the bell. They come up, and they lock him up. And that's when they call. My father calls us. And the agent grabs the phone from my father. And my father's telling him, I'm not going to see you for a while. I was like, what the fuck is going on here? You know? So I'm like, holy shit. So now I'm reliving everything all over again. You know, everything's going around as I was a kid when I used to go visit him. Back in 80 when he got pinched, 81, 82. And that's why I hate upstate New York. The mountains, even out here. It brings me back to all those times of what happened, you know?
I bet, yeah. So your father was convicted and subsequently passed away in prison from what you said, a heart attack, I think it was.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm trying to talk, I've tried twice now, Paddy, to talk about you, and you always bring it back to your father. So I'm going to drill down on you.
No, I'd say exactly
that. I'll speak a bit for you because I know your voice is getting a bit croaky. So you did okay at school, and you went on to do a trade, and you became an electrician. How did you stay away from all this bullshit that most of your other family were involved in?
Well, basically, I went to a tent I was doing, and when my father came home, he was on parole, and I told him, it ain't like it used to be, Dad. And he goes, well, let's see what's going to happen, you know? So me and my brother went out there, and we making a couple of moves here and there, you know? And then finally, you know, after his PO got off his back a little, that's when all this came in, you know?
Right, so you were dabbling a little bit, but you just never got caught doing it.
Yeah, but at the end, like I told you, right before he got pinched with my uncle, we went to go see this Jimmy Lofton on 146 Lenox Avenue in Harlem, on the west side, most central Harlem, really. He owned a travel agent. And now they're getting out of the car, my father, my uncle, and a friend of theirs, to go meet him there. So I'm in the back, all of a sudden I start getting out, my father goes, stay in the car. Don't get out. Save me. Because when they walked up there, this fucking son of a bitch was wired and everything. I would have been on tape. They would have pinched me. I probably would have did a couple of years because I ain't got a bad record. You know, hardly ever. You know, I've been in jail, but nothing crazy. You know?
Yeah. You haven't been, you haven't been in jail, did you say?
No, not prison. You know, I've been locked up. You know,
Yeah. No,
but
that's
nothing
fine.
like my father or anybody
Good.
else.
That's so. And then you were electrician. You were electrician for
Yeah,
all your life.
local
Is the
trade.
profession? Sorry, say.
Yeah, yeah, electrician. I work for IBEW, which is International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers.
Good on
Local
you. Good on you.
And I had 10 years ago, I broke my neck. So I had to
Oh
retire.
shit.
Yeah, I got my discs in my neck from 4 to 6. I got into 5 major car accidents and walked out of them because I was fucked up, driving fucked up. And it affected me 10 years later. And
Shit.
I had 2, 3 operations. Got a big scar down my neck here. I got a little scar here, the first one. And that's the story, you know. But I could have been definitely, but my mother had a lot to do with it, you know. Telling my father, don't not get my, but if it wasn't for him telling me to stay in the car that day, I mean, I would have did a couple of years. I would have been a felon, which I think I'm the only one of my family on the boy side that is not a felon, you know.
Good on you. Good on you. Just a few questions, more
Yeah.
present day before before you run off. I'll save some of these for when we talk on a live. But who do you listen to on? Well, no, I guess. What do you think of MobTube? You know, this genre that you kind of dabble in, and who are your kind of people that you listen to? Like, I imagine that you're quite into Joey Molino. I might be wrong. I just get that impression. Am I right?
I watch Joey, you know, but Joey basically what he's doing is a cardinal sin of the mob, you know. You don't go do this because basically he Christmas time, he wound up going to Rayo's in East Harlem. And you don't go to Rayo's. You don't just walk in. I don't care who the fuck you are.
That was with John Panisi, wasn't it?
No, John Panisi, I never had that. He got that through somebody because one day Madonna went to Rayo's, right? And tried
Panisi tells a story, I'm sure, unless I'm mistaken, that he went there with Joey Molino. But okay, it wasn't with
Joey
Panisi
Molino
this time.
just went there December of 23. He's a stool pigeon. Joey Molino can't stand fucking rats. He's gonna go with John Panisi.
I think it was before that when he was still in the life, allegedly, whatever. I don't know.
Joey Molino, first time going to Rayo's was this December. Never been there before because he also went to the famous Patsy's Pizza on First Avenue between 117 and 118. They've been there 93 years. And
I want to talk to you about Rayo's and some other like famous sort of places in around that area, but we'll do that on the live. So I appreciate. I think I asked 3 questions in one, which was pretty unfair of me. So do you enjoy this MobTube genre?
You know, I don't discriminate against nobody. I watch pretty much everybody. You know, I watch. Basically, I was watching Sal and Adrian. Nadu, but Nadu's got a fucking ego that hits the fucking ceiling. I tried to get on the show. He told me I was full of shit. Oh, you're bullshit. You ain't nothing. You ain't this. I said, bro, I got proof I'm sending you, so I call him a fuckface. You know, I'll watch anybody. You know, if it's good, I'll watch it. You know, like I stumbled onto you. You know, you got a good interview. I don't care. You know.
Thank you.
And, you know, but anybody, you know, basically, because I can relate to all of it, you know what I'm saying? I'm not biased when it comes to YouTube. It's known for all these motherfuckers fighting with each other. You know, it's ridiculous.
It's like bitch tube, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You know, I mean, come on, man, stop this bullshit. You know.
What are you hoping to do with YouTube? Obviously, doing your interviews. Are you hoping to start your own channel? Where you at with it?
I was thinking about it, you know. But since now, when I went on Sal's channel, you know, And Sal took a liking to me, and I was only on there at one time, and I reached out to them, but they had heard about it. And Stax had the balls to say, oh, they better respect me because I interviewed you first. That's what's wrong with Stax. I said, who the fuck are you, bro? And that's what he did. I said, I told him to go fuck himself. You got fucking balls,
Oh dear. Doesn't sound like you got much love for that guy.
No, how would you feel if he did that to you?
I don't know, man. I really don't know. I try not to think about some of the stuff because things can wind you up and whatever, and then you can kind of let it impact you. And I don't want to get a negative mindset about anything really. Let alone what people say about me on or anybody on like
fucking G Morello, fucking piece of shit. Come on, man. How the fuck could you do something like you're that fucking hard up for what? What you give him? I think he said $100 or something. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, that was the only thing he said. That was the only thing he said that was the truth.
Oh yeah, exactly, yes. Right? He's a fucking idiot, and then told you have not heard from him since, right? You don't want to hear from him. You're better off. Story. Want to hear the old story? You don't like the guy, right? He's in fucking trouble, right? You gave him the money, right? So basically, that $100, you bought him to stay away from you. You don't have to bother him no more. That's
true. I actually got I did a video on it. I don't know if you saw. I actually put contacted PayPal, that was that money I sent through to Gene. I got the money back, and I sent it to a prison education charity, so it helps prisoners with education. Because I thought, $100, not a huge amount of money, but I prefer to have it in my pocket than give it to somebody like him. And the thing is as well. What I got from him was obviously I was ripped off the money. I got a load of abuse. He wasted my time, and it was all those things combined that in all my life I've not come across somebody like him, and I pray to God I hope I don't come across anyone like him again. But I'm going to.
Piece of work he thinks because Fat Andy was his uncle. I mean, the shit that he did, they were going to kill him, but he's lucky his uncle. But come on, man. Look what the fuck you do. You want to be a wise guy? You want to go and fucking attack fucking captains and people and rob them? Hey, and then all of a sudden you fuck you. I sign my life away. I'm going to go and snitch. What the fuck is that?
I'm not sure. I don't because of the lies he said, like almost everything apart from the money he said about me. I don't believe anything the guy says. So
no, you don't need it. Stay away from him.
But having said that, I hope he turns his life around and does positive things, helps children, educate them educate them against this, going down the crime route. I hope he does something positive with himself instead of the things he appears to be doing. So I wish the guy no ill will. But anyway, enough about him. So what's the future? Last question. I'll let you go. What's the what do you see the future for you being?
I don't know. I'm hoping. I'm trying now. Like basically, we got a good thing with Sal because Sal is basically a foundation man. He's got history. And he took a liking to me. I never met him before. And he offered me this, when I had told him after I did that interview, I said, I'm thinking, I want to get this story out here, And he goes, just like this out of nowhere, he goes, hey, I will come to you and we could do whatever you want. Who's going to say something like that don't even know me, But we become real close out,
No, good.
And he's coming out here to see me. He's only about an 8-hour drive from me. He's in Arizona. I'm in New Mexico.
It makes me laugh when you say only an 8-hour drive. Like in the UK, we could drive from one side of the UK to the other in 8 hours.
Well, yeah,
Maybe that's a slight exaggeration, but you know,
well, as you get out west, the states get bigger. You know, it's like 8 hours. You could drive in New York. It'll take you 8 hours to get up to like Clinton, Dannemora. It's all the way up. That's a fucking hike, Buffalo.
Yeah,
that area.
yeah, it's
It
mad.
10 hours. It's a long fucking drive, man.
I read that the whole of the UK can fit into Texas, into just the state of Texas.
Well,
That's how small it is.
Yeah, but Texas isn't the biggest state. Alaska is. Texas is the third. It's Alaska, I believe Montana, and then Texas.
Okay, right. Well, you can probably fit 3 of the UK into one of the other ones, maybe.
Exactly.
Right. Pasquale, I really appreciate your time. You've been very generous with it. And I'd love to have you on a live when this is dropped. And then a couple of days after, you and me jump on and ask some watchers can ask questions to you. And, you know, you can interact with them if you're happy to do that. I'll ask a few more questions as well because I've got a load down here that I haven't got through. So, yeah.
Rob, it's a pleasure. Anytime, bro. You're a gentleman. I respect you, what you do. You're a professional. And that's it. You're a good guy. I'm glad I came across you, you know?
No, I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thanks, Pasquale.
I'm a good guy, you know? But fucking get me going, I could be the fucking devil. I'm only kidding.
Well, that's not my gig. So I don't think that'll happen.
Everybody's got a breaking point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. Right, mate. I know you've got to get on and meet a member of your family, and lovely speaking with you, buddy, and catch up with you soon.
All right, I'll speak to you. All right, I'll just when are you gonna drop it? Like what's this, Saturday?
Right. If I can get everything sorted, I'm gonna try to drop it. What would it be? Friday the 20th of June.
Okay,
that's not. Sorry, that's my bad. Fucking. Let me.
That's 5 days away.
Sorry. It's just gone midnight here, so I'm 21st of June. I'm going to try to drop it on the 21st of June, and then maybe me and you can jump on a live over the weekend.
That's what, Friday, right?
Yeah, Friday the 21st of June.
The 15th, right? Am I correct? Well, out here it's the 15th. Saturday the 15th is right now. Here.
No, the 21st. Next Friday, the 21st of June.
Yeah. That's what I just said. Because we're different.
Yeah.
We're 7 hours apart. You know?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
So here
right, buddy.
it's 5 o'clock. It's after midnight over there.
It is 8 minutes past 12. But yeah. Look, I don't want to keep you, mate.
Right,
great chatting with you, and I'll drop you an email. All right.
All right, Rob. I'll speak to you. All right, buddy. Thank you. All right.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, mate.
My voice is fucking hoarse right now.
I know, I'm sorry about that.
Oh, I ain't worried. It's a good workout, you know?
Yeah.
All right, mate. I'll talk to you, all right?
Take care.
If you need me, I know you can't call me. Just fucking email me and you're there, right? I'll speak to you, all right, bud? All right.
You too.
Peace out, bro. Peace out. All right. Be good, bro.
You too. Cheers, mate. Bye.